Success you carry your weight. There ain't no time to debate. You gotta push through life. All my life, I call it how I see it, just because you need it. All my life, every day and every night we gotta fight. Yeah, we gotta fight it. Fighting for success.
All right, I'm here with a friend of mine and happens to be a pretty incredible wrestler and doing some cool stuff. And I'm excited to have him in the podcast because he's a guy that we know in the college room, but he's just in the post-college, his game's just getting better and better. A lot of plans, a lot of big things happening in his life. I'm sitting here with my friend, David McFadden. What up, brother? Welcome to the podcast.
Oh, I appreciate it. Thanks for having me. I'm super excited to kind of share my story and, let the world know what's up.
Yeah, absolutely. I got to say out of the box, I think you might have the coolest name in wrestling. Like David McFadden sounds famous. Have you heard? Has people said that before?
No, I think it rolls off the tongue pretty nice, though.
Yeah, it does. It just sounds like a famous name. McFadden has something to it, So, and then you put David in front, it sounds royal, like David McFadden.
Got to make it more famous, though.
That's right. That's right. That's the plan, right? Yeah. So I want to jump into this thing, and obviously you got accolades, and we'll get to the accolades. We get to all the accomplishments and stuff like that. But take me back, and I do this with pretty much every guest that's been in here. Take me back to the beginning. How was your childhood? What was it like? You grew up in what type of home? Where'd you grow up? Those type of things.
Yeah, so I grew up in North Jersey, it's a hotbed for wrestling. Didn't really know much about wrestling. My dad didn't even really get me into the sport. He was just a wrestling fan. He was actually a baseball player.
Oh, wow.
So I was actually better at baseball growing up than wrestling.
Interesting.
But I loved wrestling so much more. So how I honestly got involved was the local county tournament was held at my high school. Not the high school I went to, but my town's high school every year. So for high school. So we went, he took me, this is honestly like one of my earliest memories.
Yeah, how old are you?
Man, I was probably 5.
Wow,
five.
Early.
Yeah, I hadn't even started wrestling yet.
Wow.
So I was probably 5 years old, and I remember watching the wrestling. I was a little kid that would jump over the fence, right? You know how they have it all roped off and stuff.
Yeah.
I was a kid that was jumping.
Yeah.
And I loved it. So I wanted to try and get involved in wrestling. And I was about 5 at the time.
Right.
So I turned 6 or whatnot. So I go to sign up for my rec program, and they won't let me wrestle. They're like, you have to be 8 years old.
Oh,
I'm
wow.
like, well, I want to wrestle now. So they're like, nah, like rules, you have to be 8. So I literally trained in my living room probably for the first 2 years and would just go to like various clubs,
Seriously.
And, it's crazy how everything, worked, because my first club I ever went to was called Wrestling Plus. It was this little like karate gym in Pompton Lakes, New Jersey. And my head coach from high school, fast forward. So the first club I ever went to ended up being my head coach for high school.
Oh, wow.
Right. So there was this practice on Sundays. I don't know if it was called like Sunday Select or whatnot, but basically everyone in the area that was within probably like an hour just met there. Okay. And that's actually how me and Joey McKenna became like super close. I've known him my whole life.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, because he used to whoop my butt so bad and leave me crying every practice, but I wanted to be around like these great wrestlers at a young age. So I just started training. So for 2 years, I never wrestled in a competition, but I was wrestling the best guys in the entire country, like down the road from my house, with, an awesome club coach who ended up being my high school coach, and Keith Carson. So then when I got to be 8 years old, wrestling and rec, I'm smoking everyone. So I stopped wrestling rec at that point. Was like invited on like Team New Jerseys and all this, but I'm still playing baseball. I'm actually playing baseball and swimming, so I wasn't even wrestling full.
You swam as well?
I swam, yeah. It kept me in shape.
Yeah, it's a great sport.
I lived on the lake growing up, so like the neighborhood I lived in, it was like probably like a 2 square mile lake, and they had like a swim team, and I was like, it was just what you did in the summer, right? Like everyone in that neighborhood swam for their team. So I was only wrestling a few months out of the year, but it made me really excited when wrestling season came around to wrestle.
Right.
So, I would come back and I'd get my butt beat so bad in the beginning because these guys were training all summer, and I wanted to train all summer, but my dad was like, no, you should be outside. You're a kid.
Oh, that's cool.
He's like, so, looking back on it, I think that's why I'm still wrestling now, because he was so good about that.
Yeah.
And, you know, that's just the area I grew up in. So I was playing 3 sports, and how I kind of got to wrestling is like I was better at baseball. My dad was a baseball player. You know, he was a minor league baseball player, I want to say, like knew a bunch of major league baseball players. So these guys would be coming over my house that have played in the major leagues, like giving me pitching tips, all hitting tips and stuff. So I had the resources for baseball.
Wow.
And my dad knew nothing about wrestling. So I just loved wrestling that much more. So that's kind of how I got involved in it.
Wow. So with your dad's background in baseball, but he was still all about you going into wrestling and yeah.
Yeah, he knew nothing about wrestling, but he surrounded me around like the best people. He did a really good job. He never pushed me too hard. Like, I wanted to be really good when I was younger, and I just loved the fight of one-on-one. That's what really drew my attraction towards wrestling.
Yeah.
Like baseball, it's funny, right? You play baseball. It's like if I wasn't pitching or playing shortstop and I'm in the outfield, I could have hit 3 home runs. We still lose. I'm like, well, not my fault we lost. It's your fault we lost, you know? So, but wrestling was so great because I was also smaller as a kid. So wrestling had weight classes, so I could be the best at my weight class.
Yeah.
There were divisions and weight classes where, you know, you see some of these dudes in the Little League World Series, they're like 12 feet tall. I'm like, bro, there ain't no way you're 12. You know?
Yeah, for
but
sure.
I was the smallest kid on the field. Not that was intimidating, but I was like, man, I could be the best at my weight class.
Yeah.
You know, and that really drew me because
Yeah.
I was tiny.
Same. I was telling some other guys that have been in the podcast, I didn't break 5 foot until my freshman year. I had to take a weight gainer to make my lowest weight class in the 7th grade. So, and that's how I kind of found the sport too. I loved all sports. I actually was out for basketball, made a team, but was just a defender. And my buddy's dad was a wrestling coach. And he came and said, you want to be in a sport that you can wrestle people your size and compete? I'm like, yeah. And then kind of same thing, fell in love with it, you know? So early on, did you have success?
Yeah, like right away I started seeing success because I had trained with like literally the best guys in the entire country in about, I don't know, 2 years. So I came onto the scene. I think I won, you know, a state championship kind of right away. I took my lumps and losses, but I was from Jersey. I was stubborn. I wanted to be the best. So I was like, oh, it's all right. Like, and I didn't care if I got my butt whooped in practice that day. Like, I would find the small victories in practice. Like, when I would wrestle Joey, I mean, he'd leave me in tears, like, beat me so bad. But if I could take him down once that day, that was a victory for me.
That's a good mentality to have and a perspective to have at a young age. What contributed to that? Is that how you were raised or just something that was inherent in you?
I don't know. Maybe it was just like, you know, my household, like, my parents, like, they kind of let me figure things out. I'm the oldest, so like even throughout my career, they've kind of given me leeway to kind of do what I want, and I don't know, just something about it. Like my dad wasn't the type of dad that like I lose in a tournament, I'm walking home from the tournament. Like you hear all these nightmare stories, and you wonder why these kids never pan out in high school or college. It's like, oh, like they put so much value into a 7th grade state title. It's like it's not that big of a deal.
Exactly.
Like he was just like he didn't know. What I always think about is like if I played baseball, would it have been different, right?
True. Right.
Because he was really knowledgeable in baseball. He knew nothing about wrestling. So like win or lose, like we were still getting ice cream on the way home.
Yeah.
You know, maybe I was getting a bigger cone if I won, but I don't know, for some reason, I don't know if I had a chip on my shoulder when I was younger.
Yeah.
I don't know why, but like I loved it. Even when I would get my butt kicked, I always came back and I loved it. And I would always be like, I got to beat him. I got to beat him.
Were you, because it sounds to me like you're a pretty physical kid, you know, so what, did you have cousins? What made you like a scrappy kid? Just being small, you think?
I don't know. Like I wasn't like overly small, you know? So it was just like, I think like maybe the neighborhood I grew up in, we would all like kind of like, you know, back then ride our bikes around the neighborhood, all like play at like someone's house. And like, I mean, we'd be playing football, you know, just real contact sports. Like we never stayed inside. We weren't playing video games when we were younger. We were the ones that were like ding dong ditching people's houses around the neighborhood and playing manhunt till, you know, our parents like had to come out in their cars with flashlights and look for us. So I think I would just grew up kind of like, I always wanted to win, right? Whether we were playing BB guns, like airsoft wars, it was like, I was just a competitive kid. And even in school at that age, it's like, I remember like we would have these math sheets in school, and it was like 1 times 1, 1 times 2, right? And then it progressively gets harder.
Yep.
And they would like time us on our speed and stuff. And I always wanted to be the first one done. You know, gym class. I was a gym class hero when I was a kid. We're playing dodgeball. I'm coming for your head.
Yeah.
You know? So I think I always just kind of had that competitive spirit. Like we were raised in our household to be winners, you know?
Right. So your dad was competitive. Was mom competitive as well?
No, she didn't. Like she
was
didn't
a
care.
nurturer.
She was just like she wanted. I mean, she wanted me to play baseball. She did not like wrestling.
Really?
Oh, did not. She's like, baseball, I can go watch you the whole time. I'm like, yeah, but if I'm playing right field, you're not even watching me. You're watching the pitcher. Exactly. I'm like, wrestling. Because she didn't want to sit inside a hot, sweaty gym and watch me wrestle 3 matches in the span of 12 hours, right? So she didn't know anything about wrestling, didn't really care for it that much. Yeah. But like we were just competitive, and I had a little brother who I'd always beat up on, you know, and I don't know, we were just a competitive household. Like even like ping pong, you name it. Like my dad put a ping pong table up, could never beat him. We put a makeshift boxing ring up in our garage. We literally went to Home Depot, got ropes. I was in the boxing at one point where I would try and knock him out, you know? And I mean, I don't know, 10 years old. I'm not going to knock him out. We wear headgears and I just get so mad. I don't know. And like we just get really competitive with each other. And I think I've always had that spirit to just be good at what I do. Yeah. You know?
Yeah. Did your brothers wrestle? Or brother wrestle?
Yeah, my brother, you know, being the oldest and like having success with it, I think there was a lot of pressure on him. He didn't love it as much as I do. Like we'd come back and he'd take a tough loss, maybe to someone he shouldn't have. Like he was more like, my brother's like your typical like Jersey, like look good, feel good, right? He's in the gym every day, you know, getting his hair cut twice a week, you know, so like, you know, he's just like that. So he would like, instead of doing double practices, he would just do 1 practice and lift, you know, make sure he like stays fit. But he didn't love it as much as I did. He didn't want to do anything extra, but I mean, he was a hard worker. He's such a hard worker now. Like he works 2 jobs while managing school, this and that. Like he's a hustler, you know? But he just didn't love wrestling. Sure. And I think kind of with my name is like everyone knew him as Dave's brother. Like, oh, are you going to be as good as him? And it was like, he just didn't like it that much. So I think he kind of drew away from it. Like he didn't have aspirations to wrestle. He was just like, I'm basically wrestling to stay in shape and because I just feel like I should play a sport. You know?
Yeah, that happens a lot, especially with a younger brother. You know, what's your high school look like? You have pretty good success in high school, or you? Tell me that.
So I come in as a freshman. I think I'm 14 years old, right? So I don't place in the Beast of the East, which is like, you know, a really renowned wrestling tournament in high school. I ended up making it to the state finals my freshman year.
Wow. At what weight?
113. I was tiny.
Wow.
Yeah. So I make it at 113. I basically run the gauntlet. I beat the guy who takes 3rd, the guy who takes 4th, the guy who takes 5th, the guy who takes 6th. Then I go in the state finals and I decide to just not put it together, and I lose in the state finals.
That's crazy.
And I'm
made
just
state finals though.
Yeah, make the state finals. But
were you ranked going in?
Like in the state, like top 8. I mean, I knew I was going to be in the finals. I knew the path I had. I'd beaten all these guys in preseason. I'm like, but it was still the top guys in Jersey, and I'm a baby. Yeah. Right. So, you know, that was the first time that I ever felt nervous. Really, truly, overly nervous. Like New Jersey states, the high school states, it's 1 mat in front of 15,000 drunk fans, right? That are just screaming.
It's a wrestling state.
And it's a wrestling state. It's 1 mat, 1 state champ. It's not like these other states that have 18 different state champs. Exactly. Right? You have 1, so you're the king of New Jersey if you win. So I remember walking out on that mat, and the biggest mistake I did was, so you walk out on the mat, they call your name, like, and you do your lineups, right? Your Lehighs or whatever they're called. And I remember getting on the mat and I did like a full 360 turn, and I'm like, oh
it's a little overwhelming.
And I should have just kept my head down because the whole tournament I was fine. There was stuff, commotion, this going on. Even the semis, right? They were down the 2 mats in the middle. They had wrestling on the side. But for some reason, that 1 mat, I remember looking around and all of a sudden, like, I just froze up. And so I had probably about an hour to wrestle, but I couldn't get that feeling out of my head.
Yeah.
So I just pretty much like choked up, ended up losing, you know, going into my sophomore year, like, you know, a favorite to win. Yeah. I go up 2 weight classes, 126. So I take 3rd in the Beast of the East.
So you went from 13 to 26?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
I beat the defending state champ, at the Beast of the East, 6'2", whoop them. Get home, it's around Christmas time. So I'm not cutting, I cut a decent bit of weight to get the 13. And I mean, in high school, you don't know how to cut weight.
No way.
So I'm like, I'm probably like, let's say like 135, right? Come down from 126, nothing crazy, couple extra workouts. Right. I step back on the scale after Christmas, I'm like 145. I mean, I was a baby. I didn't hit puberty till like my senior year of high school. So all of a sudden, I'm like, man, Dad, like go get a new scale. The scale's broken. So we go to like Walmart or something, get a new scale. I'm like, no. I'm just like, no.
That's so bad.
Like this can't be right.
That's terrible.
And I'm at the point in the season where I can't even go up a weight because however the rules are. And also I don't want to bump my friend out of a spot. I'm like, I said I would go 26 and you'd go 32. Like now you're too big for 26, but so am I. And I'm better than you, but like I don't want to bump you out. I struggled so hard. Like, I mean, I was cutting weight in the worst ways, like just plastic, starving myself, this and that. Yep. I mean, and my dad's not like, hey, you probably shouldn't do that. He doesn't know anything about wrestling. So we're going to Sports Authority or, a Dick's Sporting Goods and getting trash bags. And like, I'm just running. And I mean, I'm like miserable for the next, like, I don't know, 3 or 4 months. End up having my worst state tournament.
Well, yeah. How can you compete sucked down like that?
Oh yeah, and at that age, you're eating like Chinese Subway, like whatever you want. And you're just like, man, like I'm so thirsty. Yeah. You don't know what you're putting in your body.
No. I definitely remember being so thirsty. It was like I really didn't care much about food, but like I did the same thing my junior year. I came in from football like 133 pounds, which was big for me. But then they changed weight classes that year, and there was a 100-pound weight class in Indiana, and I dropped to 100. It was at my height, and it was brutal. Like to make this state weigh-in that we had to make, I kept getting within like 1 ounce, and I shaved my head and made weight. But
that's wild.
But you have nothing.
Wild.
You have nothing.
Oh yeah,
to
you're
go
skin
on.
and bones.
You have
you're
nothing
dry.
to go on. You can't wrestle like that.
Yeah.
So you had your worst tournament then, and then coming back your junior year. So did you place it all yourself?
I took 6. I hit the semi slide that tournament. I had like a high seed because I was returning finalist. Had like 2 or 3 easy guys, and then like got to the semis, and I lost. I was pretty happy about that performance. I did. At least I didn't barbecue it. Right. So I remember after that, I went straight to like Johnny Rockets. It was like on the Atlantic City Boardwalk. I got a milkshake and burger and fries, and I looked at my dad. I was like, I'm not cutting weight next year. Like this sucks. It like took the love. I'm have this stellar freshman campaign, and then sophomore year, I'm just like, wow, this stinks.
Yeah, and it takes the fun from it.
Oh yeah,
you're not having fun.
I stepped on the scale the next day. I was like 148. Wow. I was just like, I'm not cutting weight.
Yeah.
But I kind of plateaued right there for a little bit. So I jumped about 3 or 4 weight classes to 145.
Okay.
Which was like, I was cutting from like 150. So I'd way out of practice 145.
Yeah, you felt
like
good.
Whatever. So it was just my normal weight. End up winning my first state title. I lost once that year. I lost in the Beast of the East semifinals that year. So I was on the right path, had a gauntlet of a state tournament. Same thing almost happened to me my freshman year. I get into the finals. I wrestle a kid who I actually grew up with on teams. His name was Ryan Burker. Mm-hmm. And, we were friends and stuff, been on the same teams, wrestled him early in that year, beat him like 5-6-0. So I win my semis, finals. He runs this top half of the bracket out of nowhere. He's like the 8th seed or something. So beats the 1, beats the 4, like literally like supposed to place in states, but all of a sudden he's in the state final. So I'm like, oh man, like this is great. Like, man, I just wrestled him. Like he's got nothing for me. I get this stage fright again out of nowhere. And I'm like, no. But I'm like, all right, calm myself down. First 5 seconds of the match, I go to arm drag him. He re-drags me, steps over, and he was really good on top. Takes me down in about 10 seconds. Rides me for like almost a whole first period. I got in on like 3 shots, couldn't finish. And that's when I remember like fear setting in.
Yeah.
And I'm like, man, I'm like heavily favored to win this. And I'm losing literally the entire part of the match. End up reversing him or taking him down right at the end of the second to go up by 2 points. He takes bottom. He gets out. So now there's like 2 minutes or whatever, and we're just on our feet. And I mean, it's 4-3, and now everyone that was a fan of me is just cheering for the underdog.
The underdog, yeah,
they're like, we're rooting for this guy. It should not be a close one.
Yeah.
So I got this whole arena just screaming at me, and I mean, I'm just like shooting, like I don't even know what I'm doing, like, and all of a sudden there's like 10 seconds. There might have been less than 10 seconds. He like duck unders me and gets behind me.
Oh my gosh.
So, but we're standing.
Right.
And I like Granby roll out of bounds. I win this match. So we go out of bounds. Ref doesn't give 2. There was like 5 seconds left. End up holding on. Super emotional, right? First state title, 2 years coming. It's like one of the only matches I've won that I can't really watch.
Wow.
Because it's so much anxiety.
Yeah.
Right? It's like I was this close to losing. Like, and I mean like a fingertip away. Like could have been called too.
Right.
Huge underdog. Like kudos to him.
Yeah.
Wrestled the heck out of me. But I remember like I literally like can't pull up the video and watch the full match. It just gives me anxiety still to this day. But I end up winning that. That summer, I trained for Fargo, make the Fargo finals, and that's kind of when my phone for recruiting started to go off the hook. So I was a state champ and still not being super heavily recruited because all the best guys in my class were right around my weight. So they were going after all these other guys but me, right? I win a state champion or a state championship. I think I'm on top of the world. Then all of a sudden it's like, man, like my phone's not going crazy. Like they're recruiting this guy. So I'm like, oh, there's levels to this. So then I go to Fargo and I make the Fargo finals in a loaded weight class again. And then my phone kind of started going off the hook. And then my senior year went undefeated and kind of ran through everyone I wrestled.
Nice.
At least in my, like in the States, like Beast of the East pretty much handled my competition. Like we didn't do Ironman or stuff, but like we stayed on the East Coast. Like there were obviously like, I think you had Marinelli and Massa that were around my weight that I didn't get to wrestle, but everyone other than that, I kind of took care of that year.
In your senior year, you so you kind of take care of. Are you at 45 or 52 or?
I'm at 160.
Oh, you jumped up too.
Oh yeah, I was like, well, let's just keep this train going because at that point, I win a state title. I wrestle 152 in Fargo, make the Fargo finals. I wake up the next morning. I'll talk about that. So
okay.
Think about this. I'm not being super heavily recruited right now. Like there's probably a couple schools reaching out to me. And I remember I'm having this conversation with Coach Buxton and I'm like, hey, I'm thinking about committing right now before Fargo. And he's like, don't. He's like, why? He's like, just wait. And I'm like, but almost I was doing it as a reserve. Like, oh, if I have a bad tournament, like I'm still signed, right? He's like, you're going to win Fargo this year. I'm like, really? Like, cool. Like that sounds good.
Yeah.
I'll win Fargo, but like, did I believe I could win it? I was like, I think I'm pretty good. Like I'm a state champ, but like these guys are really good, right?
Yeah.
So I make the Fargo finals, end up losing in the finals, but I'm like, dang, like, I'm kind of, I'm jumping levels here. And like Buxton had told me, I wake up the next morning, high schooler, we get in, whatever, from Fargo late, I'm sleeping the day away. I wake up probably, I don't know, noon maybe. My phone's just like 100 missed messages, this and that. Like Buxton's texting me, calling me, like I got this coach, this coach, this coach. So like literally the floodgates started to open. So that's when I made the transition to go to 160. I'm like, okay, if I'm really gonna do this in college at the highest level, like I don't want to cut weight. I want to get bigger for college. I'm probably going to be a 65, 74 pounder built based on my frame. And I'm still like kind of going through puberty at this point. So I decided to go 160 and not cut weight and pretty much beat everyone in my path that year. Yeah.
And so you smash through, you go to Fargo, get second, you get all these calls. What's that recruiting process like for you? I mean, obviously you landed on Virginia Tech. Who else is interested? Why did you pick Virginia? What's that like?
Yeah, so I narrowed it down though at one point. Rutgers and Lehigh, like those were my two schools. So Buxton was going to Lehigh, Rutgers was close to home. And Rutgers was just getting this new staff. They had Donnie Pritzoff. Coach Goodale brought Pritzoff in. And I remember it was just, I wanted to go to Rutgers. I really did. But being from North Jersey and knowing so many people there, I was just like, I felt like what was best for me was to kind of get out. And I was also like, I have an experience. I was dating a girl at the time too that was going to Rutgers that I didn't know. It wasn't like, I'm not going to chase this girl to college. Like, I'm going to do what's best for me at this point. So that one was hard because Lehigh kind of came out of the picture. So then Rutgers was like, oh, so like, it's up to us, right? And I'm like, look, like I got all these other schools. Like I have to go on a visit.
Right.
And, they wanted to lock me down before I went on all these visits. And I was just like, look, like, this is my career. Like I love Goodale. I love Pritzoff. I love Joe Pollard.
Yep.
Buxton's at Rutgers now too. So like, I had a lot of love for those guys, and I'd been training there too because it was like an hour from me. But like, I just wanted to kind of get away.
Yeah.
I wanted to just kind of do my own thing and be independent and just get a little bit away from home. So like Virginia Tech kind of came in, and I started doing more research on them. I only knew Virginia Tech from football.
Yeah,
like
right.
Vic back in the day,
exactly.
Tyrod Taylor. I'm like, oh wow, like they're good. Like they're really good. Like they got some really good guys. So I went on my visit there, kind of fell in love with just the place. And when I was going through the recruiting process, I was just like, I wanted to go somewhere I could be happy without wrestling.
Yeah.
Like if I had a career-ending injury,
right?
If I didn't like wrestling, if I was just like, hey, could I make friends here and like love this place? And I really felt that because it was a huge, and I wanted to go to a place with a big football school. I love that. Like there was nothing like waking up on game day and stuff and like having a whole community just there and like shutting the streets down, the parade. It just gave it that college game day feel.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So that was huge for me. So when I went on my visit, that was one of the hardest conversations. I remember calling Coach Goodale, and I sat on my porch for like 2 hours. I kid you not, 2 hours. My dad's like, you make your decision, you handle it.
Right.
So I'm sitting on my porch, I walk back in like, I gotta pee or I gotta do something. I remember sitting there for like 2 hours, and I just couldn't have the courage to call him because I'm like, man, these guys were so good to me that I'm like, I know I'm going to break their heart right now, but I have to do what's best for them. So I called them, and, they invested a lot of time in recruiting me. Now being a college coach, like I see how hard it hurts when you don't get a recruit, but I remember sitting there, and Goody handled it. Like he handled it amazing. Like he was so good. Like he was like, I wish you all the best, where if I was him, I probably would have cussed me out or something, but I wanted to go to Virginia Tech just more than wrestling. Yeah. And I loved it down there, and I would do it all over again if I could. I wouldn't change any decision I've made. Going to Virginia Tech for 5 years was one of the best decisions in my life. Met some of my best friends there, so I met some great people. Just the overall experience was amazing.
Yeah, that's cool. And I like that, you went, even though you could have easily committed, you took the options to going out and looking, and you found something that really fit for you. Did being a high school wrestler, did that help you in your social life? Did it help you in your school life? Like what type of kid were you? Were you pretty outgoing?
Dresser used to call me a social butterfly.
There you go. Okay.
I was your typical Jersey boy, life of the party.
Yeah.
People wanted to be around me. I was very personable. I mean, I still am. I'm much different now, but I was a kid that people would come like hang with, and I would talk to anyone, everyone, and just kind of that Jersey, like, being from North Jersey, it's like what we did on Memorial Day weekends is we went down the shore and had fun.
Right.
The whole summer we were down the shore the entire time. So it was like you were just around a lot of distractions, and stuff. And, so when I went to Virginia Tech, I'm in Southwest Virginia. I'm this North Jersey Italian guy, like sticking out like a sore thumb, So, I mean, I was, the life of the party and that, and I was just a social, as Dresser called me, the social butterfly, which obviously like didn't reach my full value in college because of that, but I had fun, and that's what I valued at that time. I was a student athlete that was balancing everything, right? I was balancing my school, I was balancing my social life, and I was balancing my athletics and still winning. Yeah. So I was like, man, like I'm doing it all, but you can only be great at two of them or one of them. You want to have a great social life, well, you're not going to do as well in school, or wrestling, you want to have a great school, well, then you can't do the social life stuff, right? So with wrestling, it was like I was kind of basically putting 33% in rather than 99 or 90 and 10 or 100 to 0. Like, well, as a student athlete, you have to put time in the school, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
So I was just chopping it up, and I was getting away with it, and I didn't give Virginia Tech kind of their full value in me.
Well, I think I think people have heard me say this, and other people say it as well. But I believe how you do anything is how you do everything. So, again, you were competing at a high level. You were doing school at a pretty high level, and you were being a social person at a real high level. But because you allowed that, that less on this side, it affected everything. I think it bleeds into everything. Looking back now, would you have done it differently?
No.
Yeah.
I think, I always talk about that, or always think, I'm like, could I have been a national champ if I tightened a few bolts down? Maybe, but I could have not been.
Right.
And I think, at the stage of life that I am in now, the kind of career I'm following now, I'm just kind of writing my own story and the ability to change, and I think part of that was having that experience. I don't regret anything I really did in college because the life lessons and the values that I have now, I've gained so much from them. And it's almost like, like that partying phase in college, I got it out of my system.
Right.
Like I don't value those things, but also a lot of it comes from maturity and growth.
That's true.
Right. At college, what did I want? I wanted to hang out with the cheerleaders and go, to parties and stuff, and I wanted to be the guy that was winning. Right. I was winning. I was flexing, all this, girls are in my DMs and stuff, all that. And that's what I valued at that time. I thought, man, I'm this hot shot wrestler when in reality, that's not what I wanted to be.
Right. But you worked through it. Right?
I worked through it. I was winning. I was, 4-time All-American. I had a good career, but I don't think, in my opinion, it was great. To 99.9% of the population, everyone's like, man, you had an awesome career, right? And I'm just like, no, I didn't, because I could have been so much better.
Right.
But that's why now it's I don't live in the past.
Sure.
I'm always trying to move forward. And, that I got that stuff out of my system. I had a great college experience, man.
Right.
People, I tell college stories all the time. They're like, wait, what?
Yeah.
No way.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, this is what I did. And, I think Roby's done a great job of building a culture down there. From my understanding, it's changed a lot. And, they're crushing it, Virginia Tech. And, I'll always have love for those guys, especially Coach Roby and, what, him recruiting me along with Coach Dresser. He's doing a phenomenal job, and I've heard their culture is as good as ever. And our culture wasn't bad. We weren't doing anything crazy. We were just going to parties.
Yeah, sure. You're being college kids.
College kids.
Yeah.
It wasn't like we were doing drugs and all that.
Right.
We were literally going to parties, and even the kids that didn't drink or something, they would be there and they'd hang out with us.
Sure.
Because that's the thing. It wasn't we're doing anything crazy. We're just going to party. We're being normal college kids, and it was so it didn't seem as bad in my head. But if you wanted, if I'm telling you this story, oh yeah, I drank in college and, I played a sport, you're like, all right, yeah, sure, you were college kids, but it's no one understands that level it takes to be the best.
That's And I think it is also different with wrestling. Basketball players party. I have a bunch of my friends, basketball players, football players, things like that. They all get down. Wrestling's a different thing,
So hard.
And it is so hard. It takes every bit of you, and it does. It may be, like you said, maybe it affected you a little bit, but because you were doing that, you worked through so much, and you were able to become out a better man because of it. I think that's greater than any success on a mat you could possibly have. When you get to Virginia Tech, though, are you the man, or do you have to fight for your position? Do you get beat up? What's that feel like?
When I get to Virginia Tech, so it was crazy, right? I'm this blue chip recruit, right? I'm the 2-time New Jersey State champ, who's number one. So I'm the number one ranked college or high school wrestler at my weight.
Right.
I come into Virginia Tech, everyone has the same accolades or resume as me. So you're stepping, it's you're just oh wow, this guy was a 2-time state champ. Oh, this guy was ranked higher than me. You're oh wow, they literally do not care. When I got to high school, I was oh yeah, I'm a state champ. This is so cool. They're so what? We're all state champs. We're trying to win national titles. I'm oh, there's levels to this, So I get there. I didn't score a point probably for 3 months.
Wow.
And Dresser comes to me in August and he's you're going to be the starter this year. But he's we got some work to do. So I'm let's do it.
So so this is your freshman year.
I'm losing the 49 pounders, 57s, and I'm supposed to be the starting 165 pounder. So I'm I'm not ready. He's we'll get you ready. So I moved there during summer.
Who's the varsity 65? Do you remember?
He wasn't as good as me.
Okay, right. That's all that matters.
I think I made him. Man, I forget his name.
That's
I don't
okay.
think I don't think he wrestled after. I think once I beat him out for the spot, he was done.
Yeah.
Wasn't a bad kid or anything, but like thought he should just be given the spot.
Right.
And I was this guy that I was coming in like a ball of fire. I was gonna take his spot.
Yeah.
We didn't even make. I remember I was supposed to. So I was a third string. Not like I was third on the ladder because I hadn't been there.
Yeah,
so I was supposed to wrestle the second guy to get to the first guy. Well, so they put me with this guy during practice about a week before the wrestle offs. And I mean, we're going back and forth. I mean, it's razor thin. That practice, he walks out and quits. It's like, I'm done. I'm not wrestling them off. So then now all of a sudden I wrestle one match in a wrestle off and, to one of my actual good buddies.
Wow.
Which stunk, but like, it's just the nature of sport. I beat him pretty good. And, I have the starting spot. So I go from not scoring a point in the room to kind of still getting my butt kicked here and there, but like finding my little victories, like a takedown on Devin Carter, a takedown on Nick Bruschetta, kind of like I did as a little kid against Joey McKenna, right? And what's crazy about this is I'm still getting my butt whooped in the room, but I mean, I'm fighting and I'm like, I'm closing the gap here and there. But my opening match is against a 5th ranked guy returning, he's coming down from 174 to 165. So I'm wrestling a 5th year senior as a true freshman. I'm 18 years old. This guy's probably 23, 24. I mean, he's a man. I'm a baby. So I wrestled high school a couple months ago. I graduated high school like 3 months ago. That's
wild.
And I'm getting thrown right into the fire. But I remember I was so excited. And it's crazy. I look back on it, and wrestling as a true freshman, that was the coolest probably wrestling experience I've ever had.
I can imagine.
I'm the baby on the team, and like, I'm traveling basically the country with these guys that I've watched, because I'm on the team now with guys that are 5 years older than me.
Right.
Like, man, I remember watching you in high school. You were so good. Like, it's so cool. Like, we're teammates now, right? It was like a cool experience.
Yeah.
And then I have to wrestle all these good guys, and the dual meet of just having this team, like that was one of the cool, like I will say like my true freshman year of college was by far my favorite year of college. It was just so cool because I was so young.
Yeah.
I was looking up to these guys, and now I'm traveling with them. They're cheering for me. I was like, man, this is awesome.
Yeah.
Like I loved it.
Yeah.
Because I wanted the red shirt.
Yeah. Yeah. So you were thinking you're going to red shirt.
Yeah. And then Dresser was like, you're ready. And I'm like, really? And Dresser was unbelievable about like kind of finding diamonds in the rough.
Right.
And kind of knowing he like could look at a guy in high school and be like, oh, he's going to be pretty good. And we're going to make him really good. I think Virginia Tech is one of the best at developing kids.
Right.
I think they did a really good job. Like Ty Walls, Jared Howe, like Sal Mastriani, they weren't blue chips recruits coming out of high school. They weren't in like the top 100, all-American. Sal, all-American. Jared Hall, I want to say 3-time All-American. National finalist. Ty Walls, a 3-time All-American. Guys that weren't recruited, that weren't on a whole lot of scholarship, probably because they weren't blue chip recruits.
Yeah, it sounds like they had a knack for that. You come in, you're a true freshman. How does that freshman year go for you?
Up and down.
Yeah.
I started out hot, took my lumps, so I opened up against a 5th ranked kid from Iowa State. And his name was Tanner Weatherman. I remember, I mean, this dude was a man. He was so strong. And so we open up in Castle Coliseum, our home gym.
Wow.
We're rolling them up right now. So it gets to me, and I think we won every single match. And like just looking at the matchups after me, I'm like, man, I can't be the only one to lose this match. I'm like, whoa, like this is. I'm like, man, but I'm like, I have no expectations for this match. I think I can beat him, but I have no idea. So I'm just like, I'm just gonna wrestle and like see what happens. I end up beating him. Opening match, flex right to the crowd, hyping them up, super pumped. We end up beating Iowa State. And then I was like, man, like, all right, I just beat the 5th ranked guy. Like, I'm going to be ranked next week. And like, I remember telling Dresser, I'm like, hey, they're going to rank me in the top 10 next week, and I'm just going to keep climbing. And end up the next week we have Penn State. So we go back to back. We have Penn State, 6,000, 8,000 fans in Castle. I was wrestling a kid named Shakur Rashid, and this dude was monster too. He was huge. He was cutting, I don't know, he was the biggest 65-pounder I've ever wrestled. He takes me down right away. He's really good on top. He torches me on top. I'm losing 6-2 with 45 seconds left. I take him down 3 times in a row to send it into overtime in 40 seconds left.
Gosh.
And take him down in overtime. And I mean, this place went berserk. And that was one of the coolest college moments I had. But his body just completely shut down. He was cutting way too much weight.
Too much muscle.
Oh my God. Like, I mean, I was literally like, I was snapping and spinning. I'm like, he was just like, he had nothing. And I was just like, man, bro, this guy cuts a lot of weight.
Yeah.
And then so, right, I'm like ranked in the country. I go to Vegas, you know, I knock off a top ranked guy there, but I don't place. I end up losing to Tanner Weatherman again, or I end up losing him for the first time. So then season goes on. I go 1-5 in ACC duels. So I go 1-5.
Wow.
So I'm seeded 5th at the ACCs. They're only taking 5 guys.
Yep.
I'm like, man, I got to take at least 5th, right? So make it to the semis, lose. So I have to win my next match. I'm wrestling a kid from UVA, Garrett Peppelman, or one of the Peppelmans. I don't know, there's a lot of them. And I had beaten him up early in the year, but he knows, like, if he doesn't win this match, his season is lost. So, I mean, it's a competitive match. I end up beating him, take 3rd in the ACC. So I go to NCAAs, like, I don't know what I was seeded. I was a low seed. Win my first match, tear my ACL in my first match of the NCAA tournament. So I'm wrestling a kid from UNI, and I get in on a high crotch, and he has, like, my toe turned out. I had never been injured in my life, so he, like, tries to funk roll me, and, like, my toe turns out, and I hear a pop, like a gunshot pop. I end up, like, we get through this weird scramble. I end up on top, pin him. So I, like, kind of get up, and I'm, like, walking around just trying to feel, like, what's going on.
Yeah.
And I get off the mat, and I'm like, hey, my knee pop. Like, it just keeps clicking. Something feels really weird. Like, it doesn't feel weird right now, but, like, they're like, oh, you're fine. I'm like, no, like, I don't know, something. Yeah. But, like, I have so much adrenaline right now, I don't feel it. They're like, oh, you're fine. Like, you're just in your head. I'm like, all right, I'm in my head. My coaches are telling me I'm in my head, so it's good. So we go back to the hotel, take a nap. I wake up from my nap. I go to step out to, like, go put my clothes on or something, and I just collapse. My knee gives out. So I call my trainer immediately. I'm like, hey, like, something's really wrong with my knee. They come in. They're, like, ACL testing me. They're like, they said it wasn't ACL. I think they probably knew, but they were like, you got to get through this tournament. So I wrestle Bo Jordan next and get absolutely waxed. I mean, I was literally wrestling on one leg. Like, I could not stand up. So the next morning, I'm just like, man, my knee is on fire. I'm like, I need, like, a cortisone shot or something. Like, I literally, like, I can't move.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, it's hurting. So I get to the arena, and they're like, come on, you're fine. I'm like, all right, like, I'm fine. So I start, like, running around. I'm kind of limping. Like, stop limping. I'm like, all right, I'm trying not to. Jeez. So my partner takes one shot on me. And as I go to hop, I collapse again. And I'm just like, come on, man. So I'm a pound over now. And I'm not even cutting that much weight at this point because I'm a freshman. Right. I jump on, like, so I can't wrestle because, like, I have to make weight, but I can't wrestle to lose the weight. So I'm on, like, this. I mean, the room's freezing cold, so I'm like, I'm not even cutting that much weight, but I'm on, like, this arm bike just as fast as I can, and like 15 minutes left, 0.4 over. And I mean, I can't break a sweat, but I can't use my knee because, like, we have to wait for the doctor to give me my cortisone shot. So I weigh in, I end up making weight, and I wasn't even cutting that much. So I end up making weight, right? Have to re-warm up, basically off the scale, get a shot in my knee. Crazy, like, the medicine they give. So 5 minutes later, I mean, I couldn't even walk. I'm running around. I'm like, dang.
So it worked.
Oh, I'm like, whatever you guys gave me, this is awesome.
Just keep it coming.
Like, yeah, like, I mean, I couldn't feel my knee. I was running. I could hear the clicking and, like, the shifting, but there was no pain. And I could shoot and I could wrestle. And I'm like, oh, wow. Like, okay, so re-warm up. End up winning my first two matches. So I make the round of 12. Round of 12, I have Tanner Weatherman, the guy that I beat first match of my college career. He had beat me twice earlier that year. So I beat him my first match. I lose to him in Vegas, lose to him at Virginia Duels. Now I got this guy who's a 5th-year senior, you know, in the blood round. I'm this freshman, no pressure on me. I, like, look at him, and I could kind of sense his fear. Like, he was, like, a blood round the year before. It was going to be his last year. And I could just, like, kind of sense that he was tense. And I'm like, I'm going to win this match. Yeah. Completely different mindset than the first match I had. First match I wrestled him in Castle, have no idea how it's going to go. Like, it could go well. I don't know. This match, I, like, felt this calming sense that I'm going to win this. And I end up going, and it was a crazy match. End up taking him down, like just kind of real gritty ride by me. And the whole time I'm like, I'm going to do this. But then like, right, he'll like get an escape and like the riding time just misses out. And he was really good on top. So I'm like, well, if he takes me down, like we got into a few wicked scrambles, end up winning that match. Like just, I mean, the emotions, like as a true freshman with a torn ACL, end up wrestling, taking 6th that year. And
it's incredible.
It was the first, we got a team trophy, so that means we took top 4 in the NCAA. Virginia Tech, we beat Iowa by half a point, which felt awesome.
Yeah.
And it was just, I mean, a crazy, just like overwhelming feeling. I was so happy for the team that we had just accomplished. We had just gotten the first team trophy in ACC history.
That's insane.
So it was just this like celebration that night. And we didn't even have a national champ. And this is how crazy, how hard the NCAA is. We had 6 All-Americans and won by half a point to secure 4th place. Like, that's how deep the NCAA is. We had 6. We had more than half of our team, our starting lineup, that were All-Americans.
That's incredible.
So that was, I remember, and that was in Madison Square Garden, like right where I kind of grew up by. I mean, just, it was amazing. My family, friends came out to watch, you know, everyone's blowing up my phone. Like, it was like, I was up, I remember, so after I All-American, I don't have to cut weight. I'm like 2 pounds underweight, but I was up till like 5 in the morning just responding to people. I was like, I wasn't going to sleep that night, but I still had to wrestle tomorrow. I had 1 match or 2 matches, but I was like, well, I'm wrestling for 5th or 6th or 3rd or 4th. And I mean, my phone was just blowing up. I'm just responding to everyone. I'm like, man, this is a cool feeling.
That's
you know?
awesome. That's awesome. So you have incredible, I can see why you like your freshman year, because that's a pretty legit freshman year.
It was really cool with the team thing too. It's like we all like contributed to like, right. We won by half a point. So even the guys that didn't place just winning 1 match. Yeah. We don't win that match, we don't get a team trophy, right? You can go through every person. Oh, I don't get this pin, or he doesn't get this extra bonus, right? There were so many what ifs.
It's crazy.
Like, but that's what made it so sweet.
Yeah.
It's like we came together, we set a goal, we were going to win ACCs, we were going to get the first ever team trophy, and we did it.
Yeah. So that's an incredible year. I know you All-American the next 3 as well. Mm-hmm. Is the years, how do those look? Do you get better through the season? Does it's tournaments time? Do you have a better tournament, worse tournament? What's it look like?
I was more consistent those years, so I lost probably more times my freshman year than I did throughout the 4 years of college. Because I redshirted that year because I had to get, reconstructive surgery on my knee. So I ended up redshirting, didn't wrestle that year. I wrestled like a couple opens. Then the next year I went undefeated until the NCAAs. Right. And that was when Frank Molinaro came on staff, and he was a huge addition to me just in terms of like his mindset, everything, his workout programs, just his ability to relate to me, and being from Jersey. He was one of my idols I watched when I was a kid, right?
Stud, yeah.
Just, being from Jersey, I watched him win the national title, watch him take 5th in the Olympics. This was like my childhood hero. I have a picture with him, or me and my brother have a picture with him on our dresser back home, from when we were younger, because my uncle's actually like from the same town as him. So I grew up like a Southern Wrestling regional fan.
Yeah.
So it was pretty cool. When he came on, he really just developed my style and really did a lot for me off the mat. And I went undefeated, ended up losing in the finals or semifinals to Vincenzo Joseph. Ended up taking 5th that year. So I moved up 1 place, but had a lot better of a season. I was way more consistent. Like, I was pretty much untouched all year outside of the Big Ten.
Yeah. Yeah. And then knees good. You held up everything, and you go into your junior year.
So yeah, it's crazy. So I'm returning, right? I'm ranked, I don't know, 2nd, 3rd in the country, and I'm basically getting beat out from my spot by a guy named Mekhi Lewis.
Oh yeah.
So I make the junior world, or the U23 world team, at 79 kilos. He makes the junior world team at 74 kilos. Mm-hmm. So I'd argue that we had 2 of the top 165 pounders in the entire country on our team, but they felt more confident in him. And I remember at that time I was so bitter and pissed at the coaching staff. I'm like, I've been so loyal here. I'm going in my 3rd year. Like, I truly felt that was my time to win it. Yeah. I was like, I'm going to win it this year. But, he was way more dialed in than I was. I was the one that I'm like, I'm a 2-time All-American, you know,
Right.
getting invited to every party,
Yep.
all this, right? I think I'm the king, you know, this, and this guy's just training.
Yeah.
I'm like, he ain't beating me. Like, it don't matter. But we didn't wrestle off, and we had kind of came to that agreement where we're going to test out these weights. Like, you're going to wrestle 65, because I think he wrestled 57 the year before redshirted. And I was a 65, and I made the junior world team the U23 world team at 79, which is 174. Right. But I was like, I'm going down after.
Yeah.
Like, I'm going 165. So we both certified at 57 and 65. Well, Mekhi Lewis is running through the entire country at 165, and I've yet to step on the college mat. I don't place at the world championships. I sprained my ankle. I'm out half the season. This guy's got, I don't know, 15, 20 wins under his belt already. So they kind of give him the nod, and that was the most difficult year for me by far.
I can imagine.
By far. I was being a baby. I was feeling sorry for myself. Sure. I thought I should have been at 65, which I should have been. It was just the problem was the best kid in the country was at the weight, you know, below me.
Yeah.
But I think it was a lot of miscommunication too. I think in my head, I thought I was going to be a 65 pounder and I was just going to have that spot, like how I beat that guy out when I was a freshman. Right. So I thought they were just going to give me that spot, which they didn't. And they obviously made the right decision. That's why they're the head coach, right? That's why Roby's the head coach. But I was very bitter and salty and feeling sorry for myself. Like, this is the 1 year for me to win it.
Right.
And I'm at the wrong weight class. And I truly felt it was destined for me to win it that year. So
was it a hard cut for you?
It was like the last year before it would have been a hard cut.
Gotcha.
Like, I was just like, I was planning on going 165. So my like the miscommunication of me going 174, like, it was talked about, but I was just like, nah, you guys are joking. I'm a 65 pounder.
Right.
I never did anything to get big enough for 74. Right. So this is like the first year, like, I'm going in this, like, my sophomore year, I think I could win it. I don't. My junior year going up to 174 midway through the season, because I wrestled the world championships, the U23 world championships in October or whatever. Then I get hurt. So I wrestle in December as my first college match. And I was planning on going down. So I didn't do any, I mean, I'm weighing 172, 173, right? I'm like, man, like this, and the whole year, every match, I'm just like, I should be there. Mekhi would wrestle right before me. I'd be like, I should be wrestling right now. So I wasn't confident in myself at 174. I mean, I was miserable. Like, I would just be like, you know, man, like, I'm on pace to be Virginia Tech's first four-time All-American. Like, it ain't happening this year. Like, nah, like, whatever. Like, I'll be a 3-timer. I don't care. Like, because I, like, literally didn't care about the season. I was just like, man, like, I can't believe they did this to me. But it was the right move on their part. So go to ACCs, win ACCs, NCAAs, lose second round. I'm like freaking out. I want to say I got a few calls against me that match. That was back when they had the hand to the face rule. Yeah. I mean, I literally touched the guy's forehead with 5 seconds left. They give me 1 point, send it into overtime, get taken down. I mean, I'm like, I'm done. I'm not wrestling. Like, no way. Like, I got to go cut weight now. Like, nope. Like, should have been at 65. And I mean, this is at NCAA tournaments. I'm like freaking out, like, just in the corner. I'm just like screaming this. I'm like, I just couldn't believe it, right? Because I'm like, I'm so much better than this. Like, didn't sleep that night. Yeah. I still have a whole tournament to wrestle if I want an AA. Mm-hmm. I end up wrestling all the way back to 5th place. Somehow. And I remember, but that was the first time where I All-American that I wasn't even happy. I remember doing an interview after, and it was almost just like a sigh of relief. I was just so happy to get on that podium. I was like, you guys have no idea how much this season has sucked for me now. And that was really difficult because that was the first year that I went into like thinking I really didn't have a chance to win. I was just like not confident in myself. Right. Took a few losses I shouldn't have. It was just hard times, right? But it kind of shaped me. Yeah, so those battles for sure end up shaping you, right? And I didn't get my way, essentially. So I'm being a baby, right? No, right? I'm like, who am I mad at other than like myself for not doing the right things? Like I'm literally being a baby because I didn't get my way. Yeah, when you think about it like that, you're like, all right, yeah, like that's not too bad.
And if you probably, I mean, hindsight now, but if you would have probably just committed and said, this is my weight class now, this is where I'm going, you could potentially won or been close.
Yeah,
you know?
I mean, you had Zahid and Mark
That's
at
right,
that time.
but
They
those
were
two
kind,
they
were kind of like ahead of the field.
Right.
That's why everyone kind of went above
Well,
or
they
below
tried to
them
move
because
it,
they were
yeah.
like, all right, well, these two have established themselves,
Right.
right? And I was like, I wasn't confident that I could beat them,
Right.
but I was more confident at 165.
Right.
So I was like, man, like you got this two-headed snake
Yeah.
that like no one's even getting through.
Yeah.
So it was like tough because I'm like, man, I'm going into a tournament knowing that I'm probably not going to win it.
That's tough for sure. But that adversity taught you a lot about you.
Yeah.
You know, and that's another thing I love about this sport and that's what we talk about with Fighting for Success is that wrestling in combat sports, they translate so much to life.
Yeah.
Right? There's so many times in life that things do not go our way.
Yeah.
And sometimes we pout. Sometimes we are the baby and we sit in the corner and we scream things but when we understand and we kind of push ourselves through it, more growth, I believe, and I've got a quote that I say is that all good things come through suffering.
Yeah.
I believe
if it was easy, everyone would do it.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah. And so wrestling gives us that opportunity to be in those positions, to have things not go our way. You know, it's like I hear it in the football field and the basketball court and all these things, you know, they're blaming the referees, they're blaming the coaches. Wrestling's one of those sports where it's on you.
It's all on you.
You can blame
That's
the
what
coach.
got me started in
right.
that, right?
And that's it. It's like full circle.
Yep.
And as you're telling me your story, I'm like, it's just an evolution of the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he had Joey back then, and he had to work really hard to maybe score on him. And then he had these guys in college. It was the same exact thing. Things adversity didn't go this way, and he got in the sport because of it. Now he's faced it. This is really what he wants to do. That's the beauty of the sport.
Yeah.
You know, but that is also life.
Yeah.
You know,
and I couldn't agree with that more. Right? It's like life. I'm like on the phone with my dad. I'm like, they didn't give me what I wanted. I'm ready to transfer. He goes, you think when you graduate from school that you think your boss is going to give you everything you want?
Right.
And I'm like, Dad, like, you know, this is unfair. Like,
Right.
He's like, you're literally being a baby. He's like, why don't you like, you know, get your act together and just work harder. He's like, you got outworked. You got outbeat.
Man.
And I'm just like, man, I applied so many life lessons.
So good.
Right? I'm like, I would say a bunch of people probably would have been like, I lost my spot. I'm the team captain. I'm going to go transfer where someone wants me.
Yeah.
It was like, no, I kept my head down and just worked, and I had to work harder, and I had to deal with adversity, and that's life. It's
That
like
is
you're not
life.
if you get handed on a golden plate, like spoon fed on a it's like no, it's like I had a real life adverse situation, and I didn't handle it properly, but like I learned from it, I grew from it.
And the thing is you say you didn't handle it properly because you are used to winning. You're used to getting your way. You know, I mean,
I'm the team captain.
That's it.
Like what says I go, or what I say goes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right?
Yeah, and I think that, but what better opportunity for you to, and that's again, I love the sport because it forces us into a place of choosing humility, or basically being a brat or being a baby.
That's why I was being a spoiled brat.
Yeah, and so you had to face that, and then eventually you came back to humility, and it was all back to, okay, what I do now.
Yep.
And that's life. And I know, you know, you've experienced other things in life that you've had to do the exact same thing, and it'll continue to go that way the rest of your life.
Rest of my life, right?
Yeah.
It was like I'm 21 years old. I think I know the world. I don't have a clue about the world.
No, and I definitely believe that people kind of sometimes raise an eyebrow when I say this, but I believe suffering is a skill. I believe we can get better at suffering, and I say this in every podcast because wrestling has taught me how to suffer well, and it doesn't mean that I won't hurt really bad at times and it won't be unfamiliar to me, but there will be something inside me that feels, I'm like, I know what this is.
Yep.
I know that feeling. It is suffering, and it's when my head's down on the mat. I remember that when my head was down on the mat and I couldn't breathe and I didn't feel like I could pick my head up. I know what that is. Now this happens to be a financial thing or a marriage thing, but it's the same thing.
Yep.
You know, and that is a skill. That is a skill. You get better at it because you know when you're on your head's on the mat, if you lay there and you just keep getting beat up and you don't get up, nothing changes.
If nothing changes, nothing changes.
That's right. That's right. So we're forced to put one foot in front of the other and go back to the drawing board to get better. Same as life.
Yep.
And that's what I love about it. And that's why I wanted to do this podcast, because I'm like, even if you've never did a combat sport, you can learn so much from conversations like this, because everybody else out there listening, you don't have to be a wrestler. You have to understand that life's going to suck.
Yeah.
So choose suffering every day some way. So whenever you get into something that you can't control, suffering's familiar.
Yep.
I
couldn't agree more. It's like wrestling teaches you more lessons about life. That's why, like they always say, right, wrestlers make great business people,
right,
or great workers, because the stuff that we have to endure on a daily basis and just going through. I mean, we train differently than every other sport. In college, we're waking up almost every day by 6:30 to go to lift or go to a workout.
Right.
This doing doubles while having to manage our diets. I remember walking through the halls and the football training tables. They would have these food laid out for them, and it's like Buffalo Wild Wings.
Yes.
I mean, they're getting boxes of like 20 chicken fingers. I'm like, they're gonna eat all that? Like,
that's insane.
And they're like, yeah, like the linemen have to put on calories. I'm like, there has to be a better way to put on calories. I'm like, can I at least get a wing? Like, they ain't gonna eat 20 of them,
Yeah.
And it's crazy, but like just the managing the weight cut, the
Yes.
school, just
social life, everything.
It's a hard.
It's very hard, and then like
it teaches you discipline.
It teaches you
too.
discipline. That's it. I sound like a broken record because I say the same things over and over again. But what I love about talking to different wrestlers and coaches and things like that, and combat sport athletes in general, we all go through it and we all have learned similar principles, but we've also got our own story behind it, right? Like your story is, there's not many people, you and Johnny DeGilius both enjoyed your college. Not many other guys can say that, other than the fact that they were like, I was really disciplined. I did this.
Yeah.
But you two had a good time too.
Oh yeah.
Your story sounds different and I love that. And I want other kids to know that, listen, you can go and you can go have a good time at college, still have success. Now understand there's going to be trade-off.
Yep.
100%. And Johnny told me the same exact thing. He's like, my training partner was Nate Tomasello. The guy was a machine, and you knew what he was going to do. He goes, but I was out having fun, and I wouldn't trade mine, and he wouldn't trade his. We were different tracks.
Yep.
And I like that. I like that we all can kind of have our way, but we also got to understand that there is trade-off to everything. Nate missed, not speaking for Nate, but he missed out on what you experienced in college.
Yeah. And people people like that have like, I don't want to say lived under a rock, but like that are like, wait, you did that? Like you went to prom? Like you wouldn't believe, like, right, some of these wrestlers with crazy parents, like, you had a prom? Like, you got to go down the shore for prom and stay a week in a beach house? I'm like, I did.
Yeah.
It's crazy. And I'm just like, but that's what, like, I experienced a lot about life. So at this stage in my life, like, I feel I've done, like, I've done everything that, like, I thought was cool.
Right.
And now I'm like, I know what I want for my life now.
Yeah.
And that's where I feel like some of these other, I was like, oh, that's your college experience. Like, wait, you got to go to a party, a college game day, like this and that. I'm like, I have. Like, because I was there.
Yeah.
You know, I wanted to be there. Where they're like, oh, man, like, we weren't allowed to drink during the season and we had to stay dry. And I'm like, yeah, like, to each their own. But I'm like, look, like, that's why I truly believe I'm still wrestling right now. Because it wasn't like, man, I was locked away for 5 years. When I'm done with my college career, it's like, oh, I can finally have a beer. Now it was like, I did that and I was like, if I'm going to do this sport and continue to do it, I'm going to have to go all in and something's going to change, because if nothing changes, nothing changes. So it's like, that's why I say, like, no, I don't regret anything about my college like experience, because I think I had an amazing, I loved Virginia Tech. I had an amazing experience overall, where people will just talk about their wrestling side of things. Oh yeah, like, my team was awesome. Like, we won this. I'm like, man, like, I had a great group of friends. Yeah. One of my buddies, like, one of my best friends was in a frat, always getting the call to go over. Hey, we got a mixer with this sorority. It's like, all right, I'm there. And it's like, right, I'm the only athlete that can get in because I know my friend. And it's like, right, it was fun. Like, I had a blast, but it's like you said, something had to suffer. Yeah, there's always a trade-off, and I'm not even saying that it's a bad thing, but just, I think for young kids or high school kids that are listening, is like, know what you can't serve two masters. The Bible's very clear about that, right? That you can't serve two masters, and just know that there is trade-off, and that doesn't mean that you're making the wrong decision whatever you choose. Just understand that
at the end of the day, don't be bitter about the results you get.
100%.
You know, I always tell people, it's like, don't be mad at the results that you didn't earn. Everybody's always ticked off. Like, I can't lose weight. I'm like, well, what are you eating? Oh, I eat whatever I want. You go to the gym? No, I don't go to the gym. Well, why are you mad at something that you didn't earn? You know, you earned the body you have. You know, it's like, if you want to make a change, you got to change.
100%.
You know?
And that's what, like, I mean, with any college, there's going to be distractions,
Sure.
right? Like, this wasn't just Virginia Tech.
No.
This is everywhere.
Everywhere.
Like, everywhere. And it's like, as an 18-year-old kid, or I was 7. No, I was 18. I thought I was younger. But, right, as an 18-year-old, I don't want to say kid, right? Technically, I'm an adult, right? But I mean, I graduated high school 3 months ago. It's like, you put me on my own, right? I have freedom for, like, the first time where I truly can go to bed at whatever time I want. My mom's not calling me to check, hey, are you home? Did you lock the door? It's like, this is all on me. So I had, like, all this, like, independence that it was like, and that's what, like, I felt like free almost, you know, but I had also experienced some of that throughout high school and kind of knew, you know, about that. Like, you see all the time, so many college like athletes across the board fall on their face because their parents had sheltered them. Right. I saw a lot when I was in high school. I saw a lot of things. I went to a lot of parties in high school. You know, I had a prom weekend. I had this social life, right? This is who I was. I just had this social life. So when I got to college, it was just bigger.
Yeah, that's it.
Right? It was just a bigger party. And it was like, so it wasn't anything new to me where I saw some friends and some, you know, teammates that it was like their eyes got this big when they saw it, you know? And it's like, man, like my dad never let me do this. And you put one beer in front of their face before they even smelled alcohol. Next thing you know, they're at every frat party 2 weeks later and getting kicked off the team and dropping out of school, you know, just because they thought like, and right, I'm not telling parents how to parent their kid, right? But there's got to be a balance.
For sure.
I truly believe that, right? It's like I would say you'd be in denial to say like, if you send the kid to college and like you kind of shelter them, that they're never going to experience like, or see at least alcohol, you know, and stuff. So it's like, for me, it's like my parents were always like, yeah, you can go to that party, but if you get in trouble, it's on you.
Sure.
Like you're going to have to deal with it. It's not like, hey, we're going to come bail you out. Cops come, like you figure it out, get a ride home with someone, go to someone's house. Like, we're not coming to get you. You find your own way. So it was like when I got to college, it wasn't a shock to me, right? And I'm not saying that's the right way. I was partying, I was drinking underage, but you know, I saw a lot of kids that had never experienced a party before they got to college, and then they're the people we have to carry. We're carrying home and putting a bucket on the side of the couch, you know? And it's like, man, like, they're just like, and then they want to go do it again. And you're like, bro, like, we just carried you home. We carried you home. You woke up not in your bed on the couch. Yeah, but it was so fun. I never got to do this back home. And then next thing you know, their life's kind of falling apart.
You're right.
And
you
it's
see
sad.
it all the time.
It's really sad.
That's what I like about your story is that you had that time in the appropriate amount of, you know, appropriate space and time that you had it. But now you get out of college. You told me before there was kind of a lag there, a little weirdness there. Like you wanted to get away from wrestling. Give me a little bit of that. Yeah.
So my senior year, I went back down from 174 to 165. Thought I could do it. Was like, well, almost like living in the past, right? I don't live in the past. I'm like, well, I could have won it last year at 65. I'm going back down. Makai's Olympic redshirting. So 65's open. My best friend was my backup 74 pounder, right? Best man, like he's going to be my best man in my wedding. Like, you know, I love the kid to death.
Yeah.
He did his 4 years or 5 years or whatever. And he was like, hey, he had one extra year of eligibility, but he was like, hey, like, I'm basically like my scholarships like ran out or, you know, it was for 4 years. Like I still have a year of eligibility, but I kind of got to work and like pay for school. And he's like, I don't want to do that to be a backup. You know, I don't want to. I'm like, all right, but like, what if I go down to 165? And he's like, you're not going down to 165. I'm like, if I go down to 165, will you come back and wrestle? He's like, yeah, like I'd be the starter then, right? I'm like, yeah, we don't have anyone because we had a hole at 65 or 74. Just if I went 65, our team was going to be better because Cody was better than who was ever going to be the backup at 65. So, you know, sitting down with the coaches, talking, everything, they were like, you know, oh yeah, like 65 is definitely better for you. I'm like, yeah, it wasn't better for me last year, right? I'm like, no, but I wanted to do what was best for the team. So, I end up starting to diet down in about June. So I get to about 180. I mean, I'm coming down from about 195.
Wow.
So get down to about 180, from 195 to 180 from June to August. And I remember after that, every 2 pounds was really, really hard.
Oh, that's tough.
Because I still had 15 pounds to go. So I remember they had me on a weight descent plan. So I'd make 180, like 178, 76, 74, right? So I remember hitting 174, the weight I wrestled at last year. I remember I got the dry mouth.
Oh, man.
I'm like, oh, so this probably seems like my weight, but I've already committed to this. Somehow, some way, end up making 65. End up, finishing the first half of the season, ranked like third in the country. Like, took some losses, beat some good guys. It wasn't until the end of the year where my body started deteriorating.
Mm-hmm.
I'm making weight. I'm making 165 every weekend. I'm going from 165 to 178, 165 to 178. I mean, my off day consisted of 2 workouts. My normal day was 3 workouts a day. Something in the morning, something in between the morning and the afternoon, just so I could hit a weight check.
Yeah.
Just so I could hit a weight check. And then grab an easy partner and throw my sweats on. Right? So I wasn't getting better at wrestling.
No.
I mean, I was losing the guys that I shouldn't lose to. And I was ranked third in the country. So I started slipping. I remember after ACCs, I lose in the ACC finals to a kid that he ended up making the NCAA finals the year later, Jake Wenzel, but like he had never came close to sniffing me throughout college. We had wrestled back like, I don't know, 4 or 5 times. I mean, they were never close, and he ends up beating me. And I remember I like lost my mind, like not on the mat. Well, I threw my medal out in the trash can, which wasn't honorable of me. But I remember I was so done with the season. I was so pissed. I was so burnt. I hated wrestling.
Yeah.
And I remember, so in that week, so we get back from the ACCs, and I'm just like, at this point, right, I went from being in a national title hunt to basically like crossing my fingers, hoping that somehow, some way I can get on this podium, right? And I was like miserable. So I was about 170. I remember I was like, I'm going to keep my weight at 170 all week. So, I mean, I'm working out 3 times a day, eating like a rabbit. And then Thursday morning, right? Like NC or LSU or Kentucky, all these basketball schools start, NCAA's pulled off. I'm like, this ain't happening for us. So I'm like, the tournament's a month long for basketball. Like, they'll just do this in 3 days, right? Thursday, get a text, hey, mandatory meeting. Our AD walks into the room. I'm like, well, that can't be good. Our AD never comes in here. Like, he'd come in every now and then, but like, usually when he comes in, it's a big change. Yeah. So, right, NCAA shuts us down. Don't lose our last year of eligibility. I mean, I was a mess. I was just like hysterical. Like, I remember sitting there screaming, like, I cut all this effing weight for nothing. Yeah. Like, for nothing. Like, do you know how miserable I was? And that was really rough on me. And I remember I was like, I'm done. I was like, I'm done wrestling. I remember I was like, the NCAA tournament, and this is what's crazy, is like I talk about like God's sovereignty and all this, is how, if the NCAA tournament would have happened, I was going to be done, no doubt. I think that would have been the nail in the coffin, where I just exerted everything I had into that to just try. It would have been so emotional and like physical, and I think I would have been done. And I remember telling my friends, I'm like, this is it for me. Like, after this, I'm not stepping on a wrestling mat again. So NCAA gets canceled. I'm like, never stepping on a wrestling mat again. Like, either way, I'm like, they took it from me. They robbed us, all this. But in the grand scheme of thing, with God's timing, it's like I had time to think for the first time in my life about what I wanted to do. Right? Everything was on a freezing higher. I had this freedom that was eerie. Yeah. Right? Waking up with like, man, what I complained about for the last 5 years of having to wake up for a lift in wrestling, I'm not even allowed to do that. Like, they're telling me I can't even go for a run outside. I should stay inside. Yeah. And I'm like, this is this eerie like freedom. It's weird. Like we have nothing. We're trapped in this little apartment we have, and I'm just like, but still, right? So months go on, like I'm getting reached out, like, sorry for your season, blah, 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 this and that. And like people are reaching out to me, hey, do you want to wrestle? Do you want to coach? I'm like, I don't know. Just kind of delaying the process. And it was just like, I still never got the itch for it. And then like 3 months in, it was like, I just saw my life. And that's kind of when I like surrendered my life. It was like, I saw my life going down a slippery slope that I didn't want it to go.
Yeah.
And I was like, I need wrestling.
Yeah.
Like if I start coaching right now, like I'm going to it's not going to be right for me. I don't want to coach right now. Like I want to still wrestle. Like I started getting that itch back where I'm like, man, I'm being like a POS, like just not a good person right now. Like partying, doing this, like still in college. Like, but I'm like, man, like without wrestling, like I feel like I'm losing part of me, and like it keeps me grounded. Yeah. So I started getting this itch. I remember I kind of surrendered myself to like literally Jesus. Like I had a bad night out and I was like, woke up at like noon or 1 and I was just like, man, like what am I doing with my life? It was kind of one of those moments where like you hit rock bottom and you're like, dang, like I'm really this low. Like I'm supposed to be this like role model, standout wrestler, like this, like someone like kids look up to, and I'm not a great person right now. And I remember like, all these coaches were reaching out to me. I kind of kept like stringing them along because I really didn't know what I wanted to do. I started working out again, started wrestling, started getting like my life, just reading more, like, kind of my devotionals, kind of diving deeper into my faith and stuff like that. And, really kind of just, God kind of led me to the PRTC. And if you guys know anything about our program, like we're not Christian based, but a lot of the people within our organizations are Christians. Yeah. And I think when I committed to the PRTC, I knew Slay was going to be a great coach, right? There's great coaches everywhere. Yeah. Sure. Right. So, right. Anyone could teach you a single leg. Anyone could teach you a double leg. Right. But, from his phone calls, like I needed a leader in my life. I needed someone who was going to mentor me and just be a great leader in my life. And I mean, I say going to Virginia Tech was the best like one of the best decisions, like the best decision I ever made was choosing to continue to wrestle after college and go to the Pennsylvania Regional Training Center. Like my life changed completely. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and you're right. There's a culture there, and the culture is beyond the mat. It's, you can feel it. Yeah. There's a lot of faith involved with them. You mentioned your own faith. Were you raised in church? Was this something you came back to, or? I was raised in the Catholic Church, but I would only go to church with my grandma. Right. And then she passed away when I was in 6th grade, but my parents didn't go to church. She took me to church, and like I'd like going to church with her, and then she passed away, and then, I mean, what am I going to do? I was 10 years old or 12 years old. I can't drive, And like I asked, like, I'm sure like I asked my parents, but they just weren't about it at that time. So I kind of lost ground and, didn't really, I ended up going to Catholic high school, but I mean, it was it was for wrestling, Exactly. Yeah. So then you just found your way back to faith after a bender, and literally, so that was the defining moment for you. Yeah, for sure. I mean, I hit rock bottom, man. I was like down bad, like just like I just felt like I had no purpose, I'm like, and I'm sure there was a lot of people in my class going through that same exact struggle. Oh man, yeah. Right. It's like you have people that have never All-American that, are ready to be All-Americans. A lot of the guys I've talked to were like, bro, we were all doing the same thing. Like, there was nothing going on. Yeah, yeah. They're like, yeah, bro, your story is super similar to mine. I mean, after we went straight, like, right after it was canceled, like, what did everyone in America do? They went straight to the bar. Every single wrestler, right? Yep. But it was this big snowball that just wouldn't stop. Wouldn't stop rolling down that hill. And then I just came to a point where I surrendered and I was like, I have to change something. And I'm obviously glad I did. Absolutely. And that was kind of Jesus entering my heart there, and just kind of, he always, what's crazy is like, I look back at like kind of everything that would happen in college, like good, bad, this and that. And always like looking back on it, was always like he had a rope and was just like, come on, get back on here, pull me back. Yeah. And you don't realize those things in the moment. And this is even before like I would say I was a Christian. So he was always in my heart, and like looking back on it, it's pretty amazing. Like, man, maybe like I didn't know anything about like the Bible. I didn't know anything about Jesus, like, but he knew me. I think that's pretty fascinating when I look back on my life and can look back at certain situations like, wow, that's like, that wasn't me. That was him. But, you know, he loved me and I didn't love him at that point, you know? So it's kind of crazy.
Yeah, it is.
It's not crazy. It's God.
Yeah, right? Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that's it's wild to us, but it's just who he is.
Yeah.
I love it. And so you're now at Penn and doing awesome stuff in Philly. You are there for how long before you meet your fiance?
I'm there for about, let's see, September to May. So that's June, July, August, so 3. So that's 9 months. I'm there for 9 months before I meet my fiance.
I've had a chance to meet your fiance, and I think she's spectacular.
Yeah, she's
my
amazing.
wife is convinced that it's her best friend. She absolutely loves your fiance. And give me was there a fun story? How'd you meet? What's
Well,
were you the Jersey Shore boy?
No, we love telling this story. So it was right back. I got it back from the Open. I was hurt, so went down to the pool. I like my view from my apartment. I have the pool view.
Yeah.
So I get back. It's like Sunday, probably noon, and the pool's packed. It's like the first nice day of summer. I'm like, man, like there's no chairs down there, but I'm like, man, like I got nothing to do. Like I want to go down to the pool. So I go down to the pool. You know, I'm there probably for like 3 or 4 hours. Like just like some of my friends are coming over, this and that. You know, all of a sudden pool's just, I mean, it's mobbed, right? So so I end up like, you know, I'm like a fish in the water, man.
Right.
I love the water.
Yeah.
So I'm like
swimming guy.
We have like 3 pools in our apartment complex. I'm just going from one pool to one pool to one pool. All our group is like shifting, right? We're migrating, like we're like a herd. And I end up like seeing an open seat, and this girl's reading a book, but she's like face down. Like she's got like a blanket over her. She's face down. Like I like was just like, that's the only thing I remember recognizing.
Yeah.
So like sit down, I'm like playing music, like talking to my friends, and it didn't register to me. I'm like, oh, this girl's reading a book. I probably shouldn't be playing my music. So she gets up, she looks at me, and give her the strength and courage. So she gets up and she looks at me and she goes, you know, I'm reading a book, right? I was like, yeah, I'm so sorry. Do you want me to turn it down? She's like, you know, normally I would be mad, but like the music you're playing doesn't suck. So like, it's okay.
Oh, wow.
And I was just like, what? And it was so fascinating. So we end up like talking for like, I don't know, like 2 hours just out of nowhere.
That night,
I give her my phone number, like, cause I was just like, and I wasn't even looking, right, for like a girlfriend or anything. Like I was just praying, like I would pray for, you know, a girl like to come into my life, but that was out of my control.
Right.
But I didn't think anything of it, right? Like I had dated women previously just based on their looks. Of
course.
And my fiance is gorgeous. Yep. But I tell people all the time, it's like, right, as men, we meet pretty women all the time. Just like girls meet handsome men. Yep. Right? So first thing, right, she's this, you know, beach blonde, blue eyes. I'm like,
your type out of the gate?
Well, the woman I was praying for was blonde hair, blue eyes.
Let's go.
Right? And that's what you when you pray, like you have to ask for. And I wanted a sinner just like me.
Yep.
And I love tattoos.
Okay.
Tattoos, like these most like little artsy, dainty. But in my head, I'm just like, man, this is too good to be true. Like you're literally the woman I've prayed for. Wow. Like literally, if you could like draw it out, I'm like, there ain't no way. Like whatever. So I end up giving her my number. Yeah. Right. So I'm like, balls in your court. I'm like, hey, like if you ever want to do anything, like, you know, I moved here last year. She moved there last year too. I'm like, oh, we've never crossed paths. Like I had a big beard back then though. So maybe she never recognized me. I had a fresh cut, looking all good. Yeah. But, so I gave her my number because I'm like, man, she probably gets like guys asking for her number all the time. She's a beautiful girl, but I'm like, yeah, she like, I need to know her first. Like, I don't know. Like, yeah, she's attractive, but so I give her my number. Don't know if she's got a boyfriend or not. Hey, call me, text me. You want to do anything? Like, I'll be here for like whenever. Right. Yeah. So she like texts me at night. Like, so I have her number. Like, you know, we talk on and off for like 2 weeks. We were both kind of away. And then one day, like she's working out and she texts me. She's like, hey, I'm working out. Like, if you want to stop by, like I'm off today. So I end up going down to the pool room and, you know, she's working out and I end up like interrupting her mid workout. And we end up just like sitting there talking for like 4 hours. Like this girl was my best friend. Like realizing we had so much in common.
Wow.
And in my head, I'm like, no, like this is too good to be true. Like there's gotta be something. I'm like praying. I'm like, man, like this girl has everything I want, but like something's gotta be off, right? And I'm like, because I'm trying to approach this a different way. Like this kind of comes out of nowhere. And I'm like, man, this girl's like, and the more I got to know her, the more her beauty revealed.
Right.
It was wild. It was almost like she was like this black and white image. And I don't want to say that. It was almost, but every time I revealed something more, it was like this character kept popping out. So like she was like floating on a mountain.
Wow.
Right. So she was beautiful, but her beauty really rose when I started like peeling back the layers of her, where I'm like, oh my God, this woman's incredible, you know? And then I remember the one time I knew I was in trouble. So we had gone on a few, I don't even want to call them dates. Like our first date was, she's like, I'm about to go shopping in South Philly and probably go get a bite to eat. I was like, oh, can I come? And she was like, sure, why not? So we end up going, right? Like walking around South Philly, like bought a, like this was pretty smooth by me. So I remember like I know nothing about this girl, right? Like we're talking and we go into a record store and there's one Fleetwood Mac record. I'm like, Jules, you got to buy this. Yeah. And she's like, nah, like I don't want it. I'm like, no, like you have to. She's like, I will, but I don't feel like spending $30. I'm like, all right, I'll make you a deal. I'll buy it. But then I get to listen to it in your apartment whenever I want.
There you go.
So that was pretty smooth of me.
Yeah, that was a good move.
So, right. So we end up walking around, we go out, you know, have a drink or two, you know, have some dinner, like at this place called the Milk Boy, like just some random, like pop up, like, right. Nothing crazy. And, you know, drop her back. We actually live in an apartment complex, like right next to each other. So I end up, you know, walking her to her apartment building. Like the gentleman I am.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And then so I go back up to my apartment and you know, we just start talking like this and like realizing like the similar backgrounds we have. And like she had mentioned like she had brought up like God in a very like, you know, she had brought up her faith in a very like nonchalant kind of like, and I'm just like, nah,
no, this can't happen.
No way.
There's
Like this is, and like we end up just diving in the faith, and she tells me like how she's been praying for someone, how she's ready to like uproot her life and move to Florida because her career's not working out the way she wanted to, and like she felt kind of lost and stuff, and like then all of a sudden we meet, and you know she's like, I don't know, like you know, I've been praying for this, like I don't know, and then all of a sudden like it started to get real, right? I was like, dang, I'm in trouble, like this girl's like everything, like right, and like the more I got to know her, like everything started to come out, our interests, what we like to do, like you know, I remember she was like, I would, you know, we had similar backgrounds, we both went to church, our grandmas both passed away, we stopped, but she was like, I want someone to grow in my walk with. And I'm like, this is what I've been praying for. I've been praying for someone that could grow with me. Not like, I didn't want the girl that had the world figured out.
Right.
I thought like, oh, I know more Bible verses than you. So like, yeah, you know, like don't tell me to do that. Or I wanted someone that was going to ask questions like this and that we could grow together.
Right.
And I found that fascinating about her. She was bold. She was courageous. She, you know, she knew what she wanted in a man, and I knew what I wanted in a woman. And, you know, for that week, it was like, I was just like, man, like something's got, like, it's too good to be true. But like, I prayed for her exactly. And like, I got her, you know, like this is the woman, you know, and it's pretty amazing, you know, of all the relationships. And we had similar pasts with our ex-girlfriends. And, you know, it's just amazing because we always talk about God's timing. We had moved, I had moved to Philly in September. She moved in October to the same apartment complex. We hadn't crossed paths with each other. And we always talk about, we're like, God didn't want us to meet then because we were still kind of getting over some things and kind of mending our old relationships. That's true. That's good. Or like getting over them. So it's fascinating. And, you know, I'm a blessed guy.
Yeah, man.
I really am.
There's a wedding coming up, isn't there? You guys are now engaged and you're getting married.
Yeah, December 16th.
So cool.
It's amazing.
Cool. Yeah, I just whenever I was around you guys, I met you guys the first time. I was actually talking to your fiance for a while because you were doing a camp.
Came in hot.
Yeah. You were doing a camp, and we were all sitting there having dinner and stuff. And you know, she kept talking about you, and I had watched you as a wrestler and knew of you, but she was just you're the king of her world, and she's, I can't wait for you to meet Dave, and and it was this cool, she was so giddy about it, same way you are sitting there talking about it, and I love that because you can feel the love, and I'm excited for you guys. I think that wrestlers can make incredible husbands, because we understand what commitment and hard work and even enduring the struggle sometimes is, but also wrestlers can be bad husbands because we sometimes can be short-tempered. We can think that our way is the right way. There's so many dynamics there. How do you think wrestling is going to affect you how does it affect you as a boyfriend up to this point? How do you think you're going to be as a husband?
I mean, she brings out the best in me, and what's crazy is because, right, her fears were the same as yours, right? It was like, right, she knew nothing about wrestling when we met, which was awesome because she's like, gets brought into this world, and she's like, man, I always thought like wrestlers were just like these mean, tough guys that didn't care. She's like, you're like so sweet. You're like a teddy bear to me. And I am. And like, she even said, she's like, when I first met you and I knew you were a wrestler, like I had my guard up. I didn't know anything about the sport. I thought it was more like, right, you hear MMA, this guy, oh, they're violent, this and that. She goes, I've never met so many incredible people than the people you brought around me. Yeah. Like you guys have this stereotype, but the way you treat us, like everyone you've brought me around, like the fiancés, the husbands, like, everyone, she's like, I've just never met such good men. She's like, everyone has the wrong stereotype if they think that. She's like, first thing I do, right, is I bring her over with like Jordan and Lauren and stuff. And,
incredible.
Right? And I'm just like,
incredible.
She's just like, I'm like, it was funny. The first time we ever hung out, I'm like, do you know who you were hanging out with? And she's like, oh yeah, he was really nice. Like he was really sweet. Like Lauren's awesome. Lauren's awesome. Yeah. And then, right, I'm like, yeah, he's cool. He's pretty good at wrestling. Like, she's like, oh yeah, like he's strong. Like, yeah. Right? Like,
same as my wife, man. But, has no idea.
But she was just like, fast forward, she's like, I just never thought like the people that you introduced me, like how they value marriage. And I think that's what gets lost in society now. As Christians, we value marriage, as something like sacred, right? Where like people in society, I feel like just get married just to get married, or time's running out. Like I try and have these talks with some of my friends where it's like, hey, I'll meet in the middle ground with you. Like, you want to move in with your like girlfriend or whatever, at least put a ring on her finger. Right. Like, you don't have, like, I'm not going to take this like super one-sided approach, but I'm like, a lot of times it gets lost as in like roommates or stuff where it's just like, you're just living together. And it's like, if I lived together if I didn't have these values, and I didn't have these values until Slay like told me kind of like this is why I wouldn't recommend moving in together before marriage or moving in together, like for my friends, like before you're engaged, like look, like, and here, this, that. And I'm just like, I was just like, oh, I feel like that's like just what you're supposed to do. Like, oh, you want to see if it works. Everyone wants to test drive it, right? Before it works. So I try and like pour wisdom into these guys, like into some of my friends, like people from my life have poured wisdom into me, and like just being around Jordan and Lauren and seeing how they are, like, it's just been a blessing. And,
absolutely.
Wrestling's a great sport. And I feel like there's a lot of discipline in wrestling. There's a lot of discipline in your faith. You have to be very disciplined. I think that's why a lot of wrestlers are Christians. It's like we compete in the hardest sport out of like the NBA, the MLB, the NFL, and get paid the least amount of money. And we have to do the hardest things. Those NFL players aren't cutting weight, right? It's like, but we have to be so disciplined. And I think wrestling's the only sport where that really shows. Your discipline, your hard work. I mean, some of these guys, right, in the NFL, how do you teach them running a 4.3? Right. They could wake up at whatever time, eat whatever. Like you see some of these tweets from some of these like football, basketball, baseball players, like, what's your diet? Oh, like we eat like McDonald's before our game for good luck. I'm like, McDonald's, like what? Like imagine if we did that,
exactly.
So I think it teaches that discipline and
you're right.
Just being very like true to your sport and like who you are.
For sure. And I think one thing that our sport is that part of like the lifeline of our sport is passion. And passion, to me, it's the the most beautiful and most dangerous emotion you can have.
Yeah.
You know, but when it's controlled and it's fostered and it's nurtured right, it can be the fuel for an incredible marriage, an incredible life.
Yeah.
You know, and I think as wrestlers, passion's what drives us, right?
Yeah.
That's what we do this. Like you said, the money's not there. It's not fun all the time, but there's a passion. So we get to practice in passion a lot. And so a lot of like my wife, she'll tell you, like, I'm a very passionate person, I care deeply.
I'm so passionate too.
Yeah. And I think that might be part of why like your fiance's picking up is like, you're different. It's because this passion that we carry, I think it's rare. I think it's what you see in wrestlers a lot. It's just like, that is different in them, you know? And, because it's tested constantly, because it's not always fun, it's a lot of times it's not fun, but that is life. Again, it marries life so much. I cannot be having fun and still be passionate. No. I mean, like, that's the thing. It's like, I can be in a terrible place. I could be in a terrible spot by my wife, but still be passionate about our marriage.
Yes.
Which is awesome, right?
Yes.
And my wife and I have been married 23 years, and it's been ups and downs, but the passion that we've had towards one another and the commitment and the discipline we've had has been consistent.
But that's because you guys have God first.
That's
in your
it.
marriage.
That's it.
Because if I rely on Jules as my God, I'm always going to be let down.
Yes, absolutely.
Like, she makes me the happiest, but if I put all my faith in her and not God, like, it's going to fail.
Oh, absolutely.
And we understand that.
Yeah. And I think that that's a great foundation, because a lot of relationships start with, think about it. I see someone and I'm like,
they start with looks.
Yeah,
everything
I like that.
starts with looks.
I like that. I want that.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, even with Jules, like, I took this backwards, or I took a step back. I understood she was a beautiful girl. I wasn't stupid.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh yeah, she's gorgeous.
Right.
But what's different about her?
Yeah.
I'm not going to date you just on your looks,
Right.
then get to know you. I'm going to do this the right way, because this has got me in trouble.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
In the past, like, you're a beautiful girl. 3 months in, I'm learning about you. I'm like, I hate everything about you. But now we're
you're hot, but that's it.
Now we're 3 or 4 months in. I'm like, well, I can't break up with you now after you just told me every single one of your views that I completely disagree with, and we're never gonna work because you won't come to church with me.
Right.
This girl was eager. Hey, like, we should find the church that we should both go to. Hey, can we start a devotional together?
Wow.
Hey, like, yesterday she texted me, hey, and this isn't even me pouring, like, she's taken her own path on this journey.
Yeah.
And, like, she prayed for someone that could grow with her too. And I mean, I don't have all the, like, I'm not super knowledgeable, right? But I'm learning,
you're hungry.
and I'm hungry for wisdom,
Yeah.
hungering for wisdom.
Yeah.
And, she texted me the other day, like, hey, I decided out of nowhere, like, hey, I decided, I'm going to read the Bible in 365 days. Like, I downloaded this app that's going to take me through it. And then she said some funny things about, she was like, yeah, like, God really, like, had a purge back in the day. Like, he killed like everyone, and then put Noah and his animals on a boat with like a few good people. I was just like, it was so funny.
It's
and,
so good.
Just with our community, like, the wrestling community is like, the fact that like, you're talking about passion, the fact that I get to bring her, with, like, I want her to start traveling with me after we're married and see her, kind of like how Jordan does with Lauren. Like, his kids get to watch him wrestle. That's incredible. And, Jules she's met, like, just amazing people. Like, your wife, like, like, we were driving, it was, talk about God again. We're driving home from Jordan's place, a couple weeks ago, and your wife texts Jules, like, this huge long passage about how grateful she is that she got to meet. Like, we would have never, if I didn't go to the PRTC, we would never, right? All these little things, how grateful she was to meet. And I think, and like, Jules just started like crying in the car, like, from what your wife said, like, happy tears. Like, she was just like, I never knew, like, there were so many great women of faith. Like, cause you don't hear about that.
Right.
A lot, right. You don't hear about the wives, like, a lot. And like, but they're heroes.
Yes.
Right. And she's like, and women relate differently. Like, right, we're men, like, we can talk about certain things. We're not going to go share that with another woman.
Right.
So, having this group, like, I have my guy group, and she has a girl, women of faith.
That's
and
right.
like, I think that's so important.
It is.
Right. Like, your wife was just like, whenever you guys need, we'll reach out, like, with marriage counseling, this and that. And like, she's just like, Jules is just like, I never thought I'd be in this position in my life. Like, And you look at these certain points in our life, right, where they could have went down
Absolutely.
or up,
Isn't that
and
wild?
it's like,
Yeah.
right, even if we weren't believing then, it's like God was with us. He knew our hearts were good and
so good.
what we wanted.
It's so good. And I think one of the big things out of this as well, wrestling is a community, and God has called us to be in community. And that's the thing, is you guys are building this community, and it feels right and good, you know, because we're called to it, you know. I know we've been talking for a while, but I do want to, I know this is a big question, and you can just hit on maybe 1 or 2 points, because I know it's a huge question, but what has wrestling taught you?
Whew.
That's a big one. It's
a good one.
Yeah.
I'm probably going to go down a rabbit hole with this, or try not to. I think it's just taught me, it's really taught me everything about my life up to this point, right? It's taught me like the struggles, the disciplines, when times are tough, like trying to get through it, like cutting weight, having the balanced life, like having to balance everything that's going on, right? Between lifting, running, wrestling, school, where I'm going to live. But it's also brought me into the best. It's brought me around the best people. Yeah. And it's funny because teachers always, what do you want to be? Oh, I want to wrestle when I grow up. I want to wrestle. I loved it. Like, you're never going to be it. You're never going to use wrestling. Like, you should focus on school more. Wrestling, like, you're never going to use wrestling. It's like, this is my job. This is my future. This is my career. Like, after I'm done wrestling, I want to coach.
Yeah.
So wrestling has really like given me these opportunities that no other sport could.
Yeah.
Right. I'm making a living off something I love right now, and I'm going to continue to do that after I'm done wrestling. And without it, like, I don't know where my life would be. And I think it's truly grounded me, honestly. Like, I have a very spontaneous and sporadic personality, right? It's like, hey, you don't have to pinch my arm to go do something. Like, hey, let's go do this. All right, sounds good. Let's do it. Yeah. Right. So I think it's kind of gave me that balance and kind of grounded me in life, where it's like, it was so hard and there's a lot of struggles that it just gives you a lot of perspective. It's
good.
It's the greatest sport. The people you meet through it, like the friendships, the relationships, like I couldn't, like, there are hard times for sure, man. For sure. Like, looking back on it, man, I don't know how I got through 5 years of college wrestling. I don't know how I'm still going right now, right? I don't know how I did these weight cuts in high school the way I was, but here I am, and it's made me a hell of a tough person, you know?
Absolutely. It's a great answer. There's one thing we do in this show. I ask my previous guest to ask the next guest a question, and they don't know who my next guest is going to be, so they just ask a question. And so, interestingly enough, your new member of your guys' crew was my previous guest, Tyler Berger, and he asked a question. He says, what have you done recently or pursuing that is making you go outside your comfort zone?
Dang, Tyler, getting really intellectual.
Yeah.
What am I doing?
Or pursuing that's pushing you outside your comfort zone.
Wow. Well, I don't want to give away any training secrets.
Right, of course. No. Maybe it might even be better if it's a personal thing. But where are you intentionally struggling to make yourself better?
Man, that's a good one. I think one thing we're doing that's out of our comfort zone is I'll bring in Jules, and in this is like we're reaching out and like talking about areas where we're very vulnerable.
That's good.
And I think it's important.
Yeah.
And we always tell people, like, we can't do this on our own. Yeah. Like, we're trying to live, like, if we're calling ourselves Christians, like, we want to live a certain type of way and kind of be that golden standard, right? Because honestly, like, right when we got engaged, right, I had like so much love for, I'm so happy for you, this and that. But there were also people texting me like, what? You're engaged, bro? Yeah. Like, what? Like, no way. Like, you were just like out at this party doing this like 2-3 years ago. I'm like, but a lot has changed. And, they were like texting my best friend, and they're like, when's the last time you talked to Dave? And they're like, I don't know. We saw him at a party like 3 years ago. He's like, like, this kid is nothing like he was. And that's when you commit, like, you surrender your life to Jesus. Like, you should see change in your life. If you don't, then it's just, it's like bullcrap. You know? So I think one thing me and Jules are doing is being really vulnerable. Like, kind of opening up. And not really holding anything back. I mean,
Yeah.
even when I talk in this, like, I want to be as real as I can. Like, yeah, I'll talk about the parties. Like, I never did anything crazy. I wasn't
Right,
doing drugs,
right.
but I drank
Right.
alcohol and
You're,
party.
you're telling the truth.
And, you know, I want people to listen to this and learn from my mistakes.
Right,
Right? It's
absolutely.
like, if I close that up, they get no wisdom from it. It's
Right.
like, look, this is what I did. These are the results.
Yeah.
To you, that might be like your dream. Oh my God, he was an All-American. But to me, I fell short of my potential.
Right.
So I think us being really vulnerable, seeking out for wisdom,
Yeah.
you know, hey, we're struggling in these areas of temptation.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I mean, she's a beautiful girl, man. Like, I see her and I'm like, oh, you look good today, hon.
yeah.
So just like waiting until like we're married to do certain things
Yeah.
and like trying to, you know,
That's
it's
good.
it's really hard because we're also, we're like, you know, we're new Christians. You know, we're
Yeah.
we're
You're new-
I mean,
yeah.
we're gonna be learning the rest of our
Right.
lives. We'll never know
Right.
everything, but like, right? It's like, oh, like, yeah, we probably shouldn't be doing this, or yeah, and the Bible says don't do that. It's like, really, like, that doesn't seem like a big deal, but it's like, look, this is why we're seeking
Yes,
wisdom, because
yes.
they're telling us like, no, this was amazing for our marriage.
Yeah.
I'm like, we'd be stupid to not listen to someone that's married, been there, done that. Like, why do you trust your coach? He's an Olympic gold medalist.
right.
Okay, he won the highest pinnacle of
Right.
wrestling.
Right.
Why else wouldn't I trust
Right.
him?
Yeah.
Like,
Exactly.
It's not like he never placed in states. It's like, yeah, I'm not going to listen to that
Right.
guy maybe, you
Yeah,
know, but it's
yeah.
like, hey, why did I listen to Frank Molinaro? He
Yeah.
tell me to run through a wall. I'm not going to go up to the wall,
Check
like
it.
make sure it's
Yeah.
like soft enough I can run through.
No.
I'm going to run through it.
Yeah.
And like, because he told me
That's
to.
right. That's right.
So I think that's an area that we're really working on. And,
I like that.
you know, it's tough, right? To kind of almost like give your deep, dark secrets away
is.
and admit where you're weak.
But it's the only way we grow.
100%.
Yeah, yeah, and and that's the same on the mat. That's the same everywhere. Because if you're not willing to say, "I struggle here," "I suck at kidding people," "People can get my legs too easy," "I'm terrible on top." If you're not willing to be that guy, you're not going to grow. If you're not willing to be the guy that you're talking about right now, you're not going to grow in your faith. You're not going to grow in your marriage. But that's good, and that's a great answer to Tyler's question because it is a deep question.
Yeah, it's a deep one.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Well, I got one last question here for you. Well, actually, two last. What is success to you? What does it mean to you? I know that's another tough one but it's individual.
Yeah.
So there's no right or wrongs. But what does success mean for you?
So this is a good one because I'll talk to you about my last 2 years. So, right, success to me, right, growing up, success was winning.
Right.
That's all that mattered.
Right.
I didn't come to take second place. Right, so success was winning. It was being the best wrestler, this and that, right? But I wasn't the best in all areas of
Right.
life. So then where I actually recently struggled with success, like last year, like I had a really poor performance. So this is 2 years ago. I had a really poor performance at the World Team Trials and the U.S. Open. I took 6th and didn't place. And I was so down on myself. And I was, you know, it was weird. It was off to me. I was like in my faith. I was reading the Bible. Felt like I was being obedient to God. And all of a sudden, like, it's like, I'm like, how did I just lose this? And it was almost from this feeling of like success where it was like, hey, it's okay to lose because God's still going to love you. And I'm like, man, that's BS. Like, not that that's
Yeah,
not
I know,
BS.
but you felt like
I'm like, no, like I work too hard to win. I'm
I
like,
know.
look, like, granted, if I win or lose a wrestling match, like, is my family still going to love me? Is the sun still
Right.
going to come up? Is life still going to go on?
Right.
Of course. But I remember sitting in a Bible study and I remember asking Jordan that question, like, man, like, how do you, like, you know, keep your faith but still be an animal on the mat?
Yeah.
Like, sometimes, like, I need to look at a guy across the mat and be like, he's trying to take my will away.
Right.
That doesn't make me a bad person.
Right.
God gave me these gifts to
That's
go
right.
beat him.
That's right.
But that doesn't make me a bad person.
That's
If I
right.
look at him, I'm like, I want to rip this guy's head off because I just suffered,
Yep.
right? I just went through an 8-week training camp where I didn't have a carb or, you know,
Yep.
I'm doing extra workouts, so this and that. I just suffered. So, like, I need to get back to that dark, like, and I even told, like, you know, my guys, like my coach, you know, Coach Slay, my friends, I'm like, sometimes I need to go to deep waters and dark places to
Right.
go beat this guy. But that doesn't make me a bad person
Right.
because after, I'll shake your hand, I'll handle it with respect, and,
Yeah.
you know, I'll go be the normal, friendly guy I am, right? Like,
Yeah.
I think I'm a good person. I know that I am,
Yeah.
and I try and hold these values to myself. So when I was like, you know, kind of really depending on my faith and like really like, you know, reading the Bible, being as obedient to God, I kind of like felt like it was this transition, right? Because I wasn't a Christian. Now I'm a Christian, so I'm trying to be Mr. Nice Guy to everyone.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wrestling's a tough sport.
It is.
I'm like, it's a tough sport. Like, I can't like shake your hand and be like, oh yeah, we're gonna be best friends after this,
Right.
you know? So that success to me was like, man, I remember hitting that point where I lost, and I'm like, everything's not okay.
Right.
Just because I'm a Christian, it's not okay. Like, this is, I work way too hard to lose. I'm too good to be given these less than mediocre performances. So I remember like having like this sit down with Jordan and Coach Slay and like, you know, Joey and Mark and all these guys. And I'm just like what goes through your mind in this? And like, I've had like these one-offs with Jordans and one-offs with Coach about it. And I'm just like, look, like, I need to go to dark places sometimes. Like, that doesn't make me a bad guy, right? Like, this is what I have to do. And they're like, no, like, that's fine. Like, all this, because I felt like I lost that edge a little bit. Like, lost that, like, killer, like that predator, you know, mentality.
Yep.
And then I finally kind of found my groove, right, with that. And now it's like, success to me is just winning on and off the mat. Whether I lose a wrestling match, I'm still winning at life. I got the best future wife that I could possibly imagine. You know, we're set up pretty well financially. You know, we're very smart about that. You know, we're about to move in, you know, to a great apartment. You know, I'm going to move in after the wedding, but we're about to go get this place. You know, God has just blessed us. So we want to honor him. So I just think success is winning at all areas of life.
That's good.
Like, whether on the mat, off the mat, this, like, I feel like, right, I came back from Poland, took third, wanted to win, but I'm like, I get to wake up, I get to go out to dinner with my fiance. Like, yeah, like, you might be better at wrestling, but I'm winning at life.
That's
so,
right. That's
like,
good. That's good. I like that. That's a good answer. And I love hearing everybody's different version of that, because it is such a broad thing, and it's so individualized for us. And I love that. I mean, and you are winning, man. And I appreciate you, all that you're doing. And the one last question I have for you is, if you could think of someone that would be good in that seat to be on this podcast, this is my call out moment. Who would you call out?
Man, I'm trying to think.
It could be a wrestler, it could be a coach, it could be somebody that was a wrestler that turned businessman, that used the principles. It could be a fighter. It could be you know, anybody that uses in a combat sport that uses that in life in some sense.
I'd honestly say my cousin Cody Hamra. He was a cop in Hoboken, and he ended up like just kind of teaching all these fighters like wrestling that were jiu-jitsu guys. And, you know, he's cornered now, like, you know, he 15, 20 years in his career, he's cornered some of the best UFC fighters. So he was literally just doing this on the side. He ended up like, they wanted him to move to Brazil because he was so good. Now he's down in Philly. Like, I'm pretty sure he coaches a guy named Sean Brady, who's undefeated in the UFC. This guy Joey Pfeiffer. I'm not like, I love the UFC,
But you're not yet.
I don't really know.
And,
I don't really follow it like as close as wrestling. But yeah, he was Damian Maia's corner man, all this stuff. So he just travels the world and like goes and trains like some of the top notch UFC fighters. So he kind of came from, you know, almost like the ground up of just like, he wrestled at NC State. He was a 2-time state finalist in high school. And, you know, now like people are like, he's like this hot shot. Like, I got guys call me, hey, can I get, like, agents, hey, can I get your cousin's number? I want to get in the you know, contact with him.
That's cool.
You know,
that'd be a good one. Just how it transferred over, and I'd like to talk to him and just.
He talks too. He's just like
I like that. That'd be a good one.
And he's from Jersey, so it's always good.
Yeah. You guys got the energy. That's for sure. I like it. One last thing I like to do is I always like to speak over my guest. You know, I'm a man of faith as well, and I believe that one of the gifts that God has given me is discernment, and I like to impart. You know, I had a Christian in the studio, and he's like, I told him some stuff about himself. He's like, "Man, that was spot on." He goes, "But there is some bad stuff about me." I said, "I could sit there and tell you the bad stuff about you. I could read your mail if I wanted to, but God sees us as His son, right? And He sees the good. And it would do me no good to tell you this bad thing or that bad thing. I want to encourage people, and I want, you know, for God's true gifts and character to come out in people. So I just want to tell you, man, from the moment I met you, You are an endearing person. You're someone that is genuine and that you connect to people on a real level. And you hit it earlier. You said you're a passionate person, and that comes through. That translate. That's a God-given gift, and that you need to use that passion, because that passion will literally be the flame that drives you and promotes you in life. Right? It's going to make you the best husband. It's going to make you the best dad. I was sitting here and you were talking. I just got this little glimpse of you with some little kids running around and just
hopefully a few years.
Yeah, be a little ways down the road. Let's let down the road. But just the passion that you can give. But there was also a Bible character that was given to me, and it was Peter. And when I was thinking about it, and the Lord was giving me a word for you, it was everybody on the outside looking in. People saw Peter as the spontaneous, the wild one, the one that I love the story of Peter. He sees Jesus on the shore over there, and they're in a boat. Instead of waiting on the boat to turn around, he jumps off the boat and swims to shore, right? And the Lord pressed that up on me and said, that's this man's heart, is that he's willing to jump in the waters and to get to the shore the fastest, and that you're going to find yourself in some situations that God is going to promote you because of that passion and that purpose, and that a lot of people want to look at you and say, yeah, but you made those mistakes. Yeah, but you were that person. That was Peter. Everybody said that same thing about him, right? He made all these mistakes. He was this person. He's that. But at the end of the day, God said, I will build my church upon that rock. Mm-hmm. God saw something different in him, and so in the midst of your mistakes, in the midst of us denying at times with God-given things inside of us, God wants you to know that you're his man. And man, I'm so excited for you and your family and all that you're going to do in this sport. Yeah. In this sport, bro, understand, don't second guess yourself, because God has made you talented. Mm-hmm. Go out and get what's yours. I appreciate you, brother. Thank you for being on Fighting for Success, bro.
Man, this was amazing, man. It was like kind of emotional too, right?
Yeah,
I mean, I talked about some things that I haven't talked about in a very long time, and just talked about some things that are near and dear to my heart. Good. So I really appreciate you having me on. This was amazing.
No, man, it was real, and I appreciate you being honest.
Yeah.
That's it.
That's my one God-given ability, right? It's like, I'm just real. It's like the person you get here is the person you're always going to get, right? I'm never going to hold anything. I wear my emotions on my sleeve and like kind of tell you how it is.
That's good. That's good. Well, brother, we're here for it. Thank you again.
If it looks too hard, you try it. If your body says no, you defy it. If it's a better way, you apply it. If you lost your way, you find it. Be ground and don't hide it. And if you see evil, you fight it. All my life, the soul survives. The soul survives. The soul survives. All my life, the soul survives. The soul survives. The soul survives. Never give up. Never give up.